Good evening. The Transportation Committee of the Virginia Senate will come to order. Members could take their seats. First off, before we take the roll, I just want to thank everybody for being here. It's been a couple of tough days, and here we are going late again into the evening, but I appreciate everybody's hard work and the staff for sticking around late and what have you. And with that, staff, would you open the roll and let's take attendance? And anyone who is about to proxy out, please do your proxies. And we have general laws going on across the hallway and house rules going on up in House Room 1. People will be coming and going, but hopefully we'll try to keep this moving and get everyone on with their life here as soon as possible. I agreed earlier today that Delegate Ayala had a conflict, so we'll start with her. Delegate Ayala, if you could come on up and tell us what bill you have.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I have Agency Bill HB 1092, which I'm carrying on behalf of the DMV.
1092. This committee will turn its attention to House Bill 1092. Delegate Ayala, I believe you might have some amendments to this bill.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and we do have amendments to propose, and this came at the recommendation of the Virginia State Police, and it's mostly technical. Could the clerk report the amendments or give you the amendments? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, could you tell us about the important parts of the amendment?
Again, they're most.
Okay.
We'll let her report them.
Okay.
You'll probably. It's just very minor.
Ms. Wallmeyer.
Mr. Chairman, these are, I've distributed the amendments. These are technical from DMV relating to the department releasing information to requesters. DMV could probably explain them in more detail.
They can. Just the amendments restrict the release of photographs. You know, it's merging the new process of Real ID, updating the language. This is the spirit of the bill, and we'll let DMV talk.
Okay.
But it's mostly about compliance and making sure that we prohibit release of bulk photographs, you know, when they're taking pictures or documentation in order to obtain the Real ID. Again, these amendments provide the commissioner with discretion to deny the release of this information and prohibit the release of those proof documents that I just mentioned.
Very good. Do we have a motion on the amendments? Have a second? Have a first and a second to accept the amendments. All in favor, say aye. Aye. The amendments and the bill as amended is before us. Why don't you fill us in on the larger bill?
Move the report.
Okay. I really, yeah, where am I, Mr. Chairman?
Just fill us in on the larger bill and have your representative from the administration give us a quick
Absolutely.
overview.
I'll let her speak, and that way you can at least she'll get some speaking time with an enthusiastic senator over there, Mr. Sproul. We'll go ahead and let her just talk to this, but this essentially just reclarifies and updates the outdated language and allows DMV to maintain compliance with these Real IDs coming online.
And this bill came out 99-0 in the House?
This is correct.
Thank you, Delegate Ayala. Please come forward, introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I am Sandy Jack from the Department of Motor Vehicles. I just want to thank Delegate Ayala for all of her efforts in putting this bill forward, which is an amendment to DMV's privacy bill. It's the majority of it is a cleanup bill, consolidates and gets rid of unnecessary provisions and adds some additional protections that we did not have before. And I thank you for your time.
All right. Anyone have any questions of the patron or for the DMV representative? Do I have a motion on the bill? Have a motion to report? Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, indicate your preference on the board.
Ayes 10, no zero.
Ayes 10, no zero. The bill reports. Thank you, Delegate Ayala. Next on our good friend Delegate Watts is here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's House Bill 1586.
Turn your attention to House Bill 1586. Are there any amendments or substitutes to the bill?
No, sir. And the substance of the bill is on lines 81 and 82. This bill is a follow-up on the language that was put in the code in 2 years ago regarding the WMATA capital and keeping the 3% cap on annual increase in a WMATA budget. And the clarifying language that has been added in this bill is that while on line 79, it said that the 3% would not apply to any capital project approved by WMATA board, this fills in that once you have that capital project, you also need to talk about service increases and the operating cost of the capital project as approved by WMATA board. So these service increases would also be excluded from the 3% cap in budget growth that was put on 2 years ago.
So Delegate Watts, what you're saying is that if a particular line on the Metro added 3 runs daily, it would obviously cost more money, but it shouldn't count against the cap, which is really designed to capture increases in overhead and increases in spending. And so that should be considered outside of that cap.
If you had to add personnel, don't forget we also have bus routes. It would not be the bus, but it would be the operating costs thereof.
Operating costs only.
Services.
Thank you, Delegate Watts. Any questions from members of the committee?
Mr. Chairman, and
Senator Obenshain.
forgive me, did I just hear that this bill says that if you increase service, we'll presume that there's no increase in overhead associated
No,
with
I don't
that?
believe that's what she's saying, that an increase in service, that the 3% cap would be held against the existing organizational overhead and not any new service that's added on, that shouldn't be counted against the 3% cap. Is that correct?
That would be correct, Mr. Chairman, Senator Obenshain. It's just like the other exceptions. If you had a legal settlement, if you had something that was required by law or regulation, that would not count against the 3% cap. And this is saying increased service would not count against the cap on the existing budget.
Delegate Watts, after that was rolled in, that additional service, then it would reset what the baseline is, and then the 3% would then apply the following year to that as part of the base.
That would be correct.
Thank you. Senator Obenshain? You good? Okay. Is there anyone else with a question from the committee? Anyone here to speak in support of the bill? Anyone here to speak? Oh, excuse me. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Greg Potts of Washington Metro. We support the bill, and we thank Delegate Watts for bringing it forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone here to speak in opposition to the bill? All right, we operate on motion. Do we have a motion to report?
Move to report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do you have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second to report. Indicate your preference on the electronic voting board.
Ayes 6, noes 5.
Ayes 6, noes 5. You snuck out of here, Delegate Watts. Thank you.
Well, MATA has that way of Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yeah, we're still missing some members here. I think some folks are up in, what's that? Hold on. Okay. Yeah, there's something we can get out of the way here right quick and free some folks up. The following 3 bills, HB 538, Delegate Carr, which deals with the Richmond Metropolitan Transit Authority, is identical to where does it give what it's identical to?
McClellan, 726.
I don't have that.
I'm sorry, I didn't make those notes. They're identical.
Mr.
These
Chairman.
are identical to Senate bills that have already passed, HB 538. Do we have a motion on that?
Move to report.
We have a motion and a second to report. All those in favor of reporting HB 538, indicate your preference on the board.
Ayes 12, no zero.
Ayes 12, no zero. The bill passes. And then we have HB 1348, Delegate Tyler's bill, which is identical to Senate Bill 328. Do I have a motion on that bill?
Move to report.
We have a motion and a second to report. All in favor, indicate your preference on the board.
Ayes 12, no zero.
Ayes 12, no zero. The bill reports. And finally, we have HB 1635, Delegate Lopez's WMATA bill. It's identical to Senate Bill 995. Do I have a motion on that bill?
So move.
We have a motion to report. We have a second? I'll second.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Evan.
Yeah, could we just be reminded of that bill, what it does? I know it's identical, but I'd just like to make sure I recall that one properly.
Mr. Chairman, that bill removes one of the enactment clauses from the omnibus WMATA legislation from 2018 relating to the use of labor
Okay,
organizations.
thank you.
All right. So we have a motion and a second to pass HB 1635. Open the rolls. Let us know your preference.
Ayes 7, noes 5.
Ayes 7, noes 5. The bill reports. Next on the list, we have Delegate Adams. LR.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is House Bill 1032, and
Turn your attention to House Bill 1032. Any substitutes or amendments?
No, sir.
Okay.
This is simply designates a portion of the U.S. Route 29 Business Bridge in Pittsylvania County as the Roy P. Byrd Jr. Memorial Bridge. Mr. Byrd was a longtime public servant to Pittsylvania County, most recently as its mayor. He spent 2 stints on the council there and was also a member for the better part of a decade on the Commonwealth Transportation Board and was instrumental in several of the projects in Pennsylvania County. So both the town council and the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors has requested this designation.
Well, that's very nice. And it came out of the House, I believe, 99-0. And do I have a motion on this bill?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to report. All in favor indicate on the electronic board your preference.
Ayes 12, no zero.
Ayes 12, no zero. Bill reports.
Chairman.
Thank you, Delegate Adams. Next, we have Delegate Hayes. Delegate Hayes, are you here? Okay. Moving on. Delegate Batten. Welcome, Delegate Batten. You haven't been before this committee before.
I have not.
Welcome to the General Assembly.
Thank you.
All right. And your bill is?
My bill is House Bill 989.
Turn your attention to House Bill 989. Any amendments or substitutes?
No, sir.
All right. Tell us about House Bill 989.
House Bill 989 simply allows multiple co-owners of a vehicle to designate a beneficiary on a motor vehicle title. The current law allows allows a beneficiary to be designated only if there is just one owner. This bill does require the consent of all the owners, and it provides that the transfer of ownership would occur upon the death of the last surviving owner. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Any questions from the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I think it's an outstanding bill. I'd move to report.
Outstanding bill. Is anyone from DMV here to comment? Is this
Simple.
supported by the administration or by DMV?
They said it could be that they could absorb the
Please
costs.
step forward.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, Linda Ford, Assistant Commissioner for Governmental Affairs, DMV. DMV has no position, administration has no position.
Has no position?
Right.
Okay. Very good. We have a motion. Anyone here in opposition to the bill? I'm sorry. All right, we have a motion and a second to report Senate Bill 989. Please indicate your preference on the electronic board.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Delegate Batten.
Mr. Chairman. Hayes just walked in.
Senator Spruill. Oh, Delegate Hayes, are you ready to go? All right, we dismissed you there for a moment, but tell us what bill number you have.
Okay. I apologize, Mr. Chairman. I have two bills at the same time that are coming up. So we're on 1666.
1666.
Catch my breath here. Out of breath.
Turn your attention to Senate Bill 1666. And are there some technical amendments?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. On line 6, after relating to, strike the remainder of line 6 through needs on line 7 and insert person with a disability that can impair communication. And on line 14, after hearing, strike impairments and insert loss.
Oh, okay. Do these amendments come from the Division of Motor Vehicles?
I believe so, Mr. Chairman, and also they're consistent with changes that were made in the code last year regarding
Okay,
persons with hearing
thank you very
loss.
much. Do I have a motion on the amendments?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the amendments. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, the bill is amended. Delegate Hayes, tell us about the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 1666 is for voluntary registry for people with special communication needs. This bill, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, came by way of constituents meeting with me, a group of parents who have children with autism spectrum disorder. Specifically, they have purchased vehicles for their children to drive, and whether going to work or regular routines that they have daily, they were concerned about the communication barrier that could potentially come up with law enforcement while they are driving. So imagine, if you would, in the case of a person with autism who drives to work. And this is by example. Young man that worked for the sheriff's office in Chesapeake actually had a situation where there was a detour one morning, and his response was to just pull over on the side of the road because there was a detour. Approached by law enforcement, and everything went well. So these parents were simply saying that sometimes there are communication barriers, and a response may not be something that law enforcement official would expect. And so we're just simply saying, if there's a way to alert the law enforcement official as they were to pull over a vehicle, that the driver could potentially have a communication barrier, then that might dictate how the response would be from the law enforcement official.
Delegate Hayes, is what you envision here is that there would be a registry that the police could tap into if such a person had this a disability of some kind?
That is correct. The system in which the state police or local police would use to run the plates of the vehicle or the registration of the vehicle would identify to them that this driver could potentially have a communication barrier.
So it would pop up on their system without them having to make a call or make an inquiry on their equipment. They would be advised of it.
That is correct.
Okay. Any questions of the patron before we bring DMV up?
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Favola.
Thank you. we do have, I think the current law is if you have a driver's license, there is a space where we can indicate some disabilities, and I guess I'll ask staff which ones, because yours is sort of broad, a disability that can impair communication. So how does that fit with our current law and how we've structured the boxes on the license?
Yeah, Senator Marsden, Senator Favola, I believe that currently DMV does have an indication that you can make on your driver's license if you'd like, but I'll let them more specifically speak to that. To that issue, we wanted to make it so that if you run the registration of the vehicle, that alert would be available.
Right,
Because, if I might, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, please.
There may be a case where an officer is asking for a driver's license or registration, and if the individual, there's a communication barrier, then we don't want, a problem in that interaction.
I do understand. Maybe staff can respond, because
Lisa, can you fill us in on what the current situation is with the driver's license designation?
Mr. Chairman, I actually would like to defer to DMV if they can provide more information on that.
Mr. Chairman, it also is pretty clear here on line 22 of the bill, where it says vehicle owner with a driver's license indicator or special identification card indicator may apply to DMV for registration, so something to go on the registration card as well.
I think what we have here is sort of a belt and suspenders situation.
I'm just trying
where
to figure out what the belt is.
Okay. DMV.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Linda Ford, Assistant Commissioner. There are a number of disabilities or things like speech impaired, hard of hearing, intellectually disabled, autism spectrum, I believe insulin dependent as well. Those are all indicators that are attached to or can be attached to the driver's license. But this particular bill allows for those indicators to be attached to the license plate. Therefore, when the officer, before they even approach the car, they can run the plate and find out if there's an issue.
Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My only question is, it's just a disability that can impair communication, so it doesn't fall into any of the boxes that we currently have identified on the license. Is that, do you know, because it's broader. I like the bill. I am not trying in any way to damage the bill. I just, this would be so the driver, if you will, would self-identify as having a disability that impairs communication, and that would be available or indicated on this registration, and could at some point actually be on the license if we have if in fact one of the categories fits under this. Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Senator Obenshine.
I think this is an outstanding bill at appropriate time. I would move to report it. And at risk of making light of what I know is a serious situation, I will tell you that maybe we ought to consider including knucklehead teenage boys as having a communication impairment. My 16-year-old son got pulled over by a police officer on his way home one night when he was after dropping his girlfriend off, and police officer took his driver's license, said, "I'll be right back." He swears to this day that he thought the officer said, "I'll follow you back." So he put the car in drive and drove home. And by the time he got home, he had 3 police officers who had him lit up and came to my door to deliver my knucklehead teenage son who was communication impaired. I think this is a great bill, and in all seriousness,
I were one of those at one point in time myself. And one question for DMV: somebody is on a particular license plate, and so if they went, say a young person, 16, 17, they're on their parents' plate and they're on this registry, and then they go to college and what have you, and they buy, or their parents get them a car and it's got a new plate. So it would be incumbent upon them to make the transfer of the information. There'd probably be no automatic way of doing that, but
Right. They would resubmit their information
So
for the new plate.
the burden is on the individual then. Okay. Anyone here else to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone here in opposition to the bill? I believe Senator Obenshain, you had a motion?
Report.
Move to report?
Second.
Hold on. We have a second. Senator DeStef, you had
Mr.
discussion?
Chairman, I just wanted to say, I actually support this bill, and part of the reasons for this is I've been on a couple of ride-alongs, one of them in which we came upon somebody with traumatic brain injury, and they had a very difficult time trying to communicate, and had the police officer not had CIT training and had that individual not handed them a card that identified from their doctor that said, hey, I have an issue, that individual, we would have thought that they were under the influence of something. And I will tell you, after seeing it firsthand, it was, clearly the right thing to do. So I fully support this, and with that, I'd like to make the second to.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report House Bill 1666. Please indicate your preference on the electronic voting board.
Ayes 14, no zero.
Ayes 14, no zero. The bill reports. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr.
Delegate Hayes.
Chairman.
You have another one for us?
No, sir, this is a different committee.
That's it?
Thank
That's
you.
it for you, okay.
I'll be glad
Very
to
good.
let you dispense of it if it's going to pass.
All right, just to let you know what a friendly committee this is.
See,
You know,
Cliff, I
we're
got 5
doing
votes for
good
you,
here.
see?
Next, we have Delegate Brewer. Delegate Orrock, you are up after that, followed by Delegate Robinson.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Do you want to take up 1560 or 561 first?
Either one you would like.
We will go with, let's go with 1560 first.
What's the
What?
number?
1560?
1560, draw your attention to 1560. Are there any amendments or substitute for the bill?
No, sir, they did a substitute in the House on this. so
I'm sorry?
There was a substitute in the House.
Okay. Very good. 1560, tell us all about it.
So what this would do is direct the Department of Transportation in consultation with VDEM to have a public file of all evacuation routes, emergency evacuation routes in the Commonwealth, which we currently don't do.
Okay. I have a note here that the administration has agreed to do this. Is there somebody here for the administration who will confess to that? Well, we'll take your word for it. Oh, is Ms. Maxwell?
Mr. Chair, Joanne Maxwell from VDOT. I don't know if I count, but I am aware that we have worked on this and we're able to do this.
Thank you so much, Joanne. You count big time around here, I'll tell you. All right, there we go. That is the bill. Any questions from the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I move to report the bill.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Anyone here in opposition to the bill? Anyone in favor of the bill? All right, we have a motion and a second to report. Indicate your preference on the electronic voting board. Okay. Okay.
Ayes 13, no zero.
Ayes 13, no zero. Your bill reports.
Thank you.
You have another one?
Yes, House Bill 561.
Which one?
House Bill 561.
551. Turn your attention to 551. Any amendments or substitutes?
561 or is
I'm sorry, 561? Can't hear.
Yes,
Very
sir.
good. Any amendments or substitutes to?
We did do a substitute in the House Transportation Committee, and I.
Could you get a little closer to the mic there?
If I was just a little taller, Mr. Chairman, I'm so sorry.
It's all right.
So House Bill 61 basically will direct the Office of Intermodal Planning every time there's a project before them to make screening candidate projects aware that they are on a primary evacuation route. The goal of that obviously is to draw the attention to make sure when they're evaluating projects, considering areas especially of great flooding or, hurricane-prone zones, to make those folks aware of the screening process.
Okay. Are there any questions of the patron? We have a motion to report. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, anyone in the audience here in opposition or support? The bill is before us. Let's open the electronic voting board. Let us know your preference. What's that? Excuse me. Okay, if we could suspend for just a moment, Senator Spruill will be right back. And you're going to want his vote, huh? Yeah, he is the king of proxies, and
I must say,
you don't
Mr.
want to
Chairman,
you don't
I'm
want to come out of
enjoying-
here 1-0.
I'm enjoying the Senate much more than the House, sir.
I think it's still going to get out, Dave.
Hmm?
I think it's still going to get out. I want to say yes after.
Here he is.
Take the glass of water.
All right, Senator Spruill, we have a motion to report this fine bill and a second. And now that you're here, let's open the board. Let us know your preference.
Ayes 14, no zero.
Ayes 14, no zero. The bill reports. Thank you, Delegate Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
My
Members-
old friend, Delegate Orrock. Gosh, good to see you.
Likewise. Good evening,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 193.
House Bill 193. Any amendments or
sir.
substitutes to report?
No, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this is very straightforward and very simple. It's basically a clarification of what we thought was the existing law, in so much as if you have farm use tags, you should be able to take that vehicle home with you, given that you may not live on your home farm. We've had a couple circumstances in my district where some local sheriffs and officers have not felt this was a legitimate use of the vehicle, and we just want to clarify Farm Bureau is support of it and have worked with us on the language.
And Delegate Orrock, is it becoming more and more the common practice than ever before that people are renting land and
It is.
that where they don't live?
And a number of folks where their spouse or significant other may not want to live on the farm, but want to live in town, but he's doing the farming, so.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Anyone on the committee have a question for Delegate Orrock? Farm use tag bill? Anyone in the audience in opposition? Anyone in support? Farm Bureau is here to support. Andrew? You good to go?
Yeah, we're good.
All right, that's great. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to report.
We have a motion to report and a second. Let us know your preference on the electronic voting board.
Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you. 15 ayes, 0 nays.
Take it.
All right, thank you very much. Next, Delegate Robinson.
Oh,
Good to see you.
good to see you. Let's do 675 first.
675, turn your attention to 675. Any amendments or substitutes?
No,
to
sir.
Report 675. Let me find this rest. Here we go.
So what 675 actually does is it just clarifies language in the current code for provisional licenses. I had a father and a daughter come visit me, and the father was concerned that there are kids who are currently breaking the code, and it's kind of a gray area, the way the code is written, whether kids with provisional licenses can use their handheld devices for navigational purposes. And some parents are interpreting as though they have to print out a written copy of the directions to get somewhere, and others are saying, look, use your phone. It's better to use your phone. It's safer. And of course, they can't use the phone while they're driving. They have to put the information in, so it can't be used while they're driving. And that was what they brought, because they just wanted the clarification in the code.
And so this is the kind of one where you leave it in the cup holder device or in the device, but you don't have it in your hand.
Correct.
My notes here tell me that this is a little narrower than Senator Servel's bill, but that it is still a worthwhile thing to put into the code. Is that what you would say?
Yes, because it's written to a different code section than Senator Servel's bill is. It's a different code section that has to do with provisional drivers.
All right. Any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from the committee? Anyone in the audience here to speak in opposition or support of the bill? All right, do we have a
Mr.
motion?
Chairman, I move that we report the bill.
We have a motion to report. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second. indicate your preference on the electronic voting board.
Ayes 13, noes 2.
Ayes 13, no 2s, just only 2 naysayers. That's not bad.
That's not bad. I'll take it.
All right, there you go. Thank you. Good seeing you, Roxanne.
And I have one more bill.
Oh, you
want me
do?
to do the second
Okay.
one? It's House Bill 445.
445, turn your attention to 445. Any amendments or substitutes?
No, sir.
4445?
445.
All right, 445. This is, we have our resident engineer on board who understands, Delegate Cosgrove, or Senator Cosgrove understands candle power and lumens, I'm sure. So tell us about your bill.
Well, last year when I carried the bill for motorcyclists to be able to put lights on their sides of their bicycles to be better seen, on their motorcycles to be seen better, what I found is that you cannot buy a bulb using candle power. Candle power is an obsolete term, and so we're just taking out the term candle power and adding lumens. And then the state police came and said, can we leave candle power in there? Because for antique vehicles, they wanted to still use the term candle power as well. But hopefully over time, we'll be able to transition to use lumens instead of candle power in the code.
How many lumens are in a candle power?
12 point, I have that down here somewhere. 12.57.
Okay, so you have, just kind of like centigrade, Fahrenheit, you
That's
got
how
to do the
many
math.
lumens make one candle power. Yes,
All
sir.
right, there we go. Any questions of Delegate Robinson from the committee? We have a motion to report. Anybody here with an issue with lumens? One way or the other? Okay, we have a motion to report and a second. Open the board and let us know your preference.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Ayes 15, no zeros. You are out of here.
A higher score
All
than
right.
last one. That's great. Thank you.
All right, next up, the other Adams. Dawn, welcome. What you got for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I have a HB 1066, and what this bill does is strike from the current code requirement that a driver honk their horn before passing and that the other driver must yield to the honk. So,
Wait a minute, say it again?
so it's currently code 46.2-842 and 46.2-842.1. The first requires an audible signal and the second requires an audible or light signal. So if you're going to pass, you're required to do this, and the other drivers must yield. And the problem with this is twofold. One, the audible sound on a highway isn't heard. An audible sound in the city or in slower paces actually promotes and causes further road rage. The light provides an inconsistent direction, and so I worked a little bit with Captain Maxey of the state police, who felt like just striking out the audible and the light would make it more consistent with what the intention of the code is, and that it's already covered by current code that should a vehicle be driving at less than normal speed, if they are not moving over, then they're already in violation. So it just kind of clarifies some inconsistencies in our code.
Mr. Delegate Adams, are you auditioning for the Code Commission?
It might appear so, but no, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Obenshain.
Are hand signals still okay?
I'm fairly certain on bicycles, but
Yeah.
I don't know about cars.
Yeah, with road rage, things can be misinterpreted. That is for
absolutely, Mr.
sure.
Chair.
When people do these things. Anyone here in opposition to this fine bill?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you. I'm looking at the bill, and not only are we taking out honking your horn, okay, and I get that, but we're also taking out the light signal that was originally in there.
On the second part of the code, is Captain Maxey, would it be okay if Captain Maxey spoke to that? Because that was
Captain Maxey,
in part
welcome.
his suggestion, the light part. Thank you, sir.
Sure. Afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Ron Maxey, Virginia State Police.
Senator Cosgrove, to address the light issue. State Police just had a concern with that portion of it, and we were working with the patron. Because of the fact it didn't define exactly what that light signal was, it left it very vague. At nighttime, if you were to flash a brake or your high beams, day or night would be in violation of the law, depending on the distance from the car in front of you or an approaching car. And then if it was to turn your lights off during daytime and back on, at nighttime, you would not be able to comply with that. So it's very vague, and it does present a problem for people as to exactly how they were to comply with that portion.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. One of the things that I don't see done much anymore, but when you're passing a truck, they used to flash their lights to let you know it was okay to pull in front of them. Is that still?
I think that's a courtesy, Mr.
It's a
Chairman.
courtesy. That's
Sometimes
not
they
in any-
use their four-way flashers. I've seen that, but there's no requirement for that.
That is the one I'm familiar with. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And so any other questions for the patron? For the state police?
Mr. Chairman, I when you're ready,
Senator
I'm ready
Obenshain.
for a
I
motion.
was going to say, I moved to support. I used to be moved to report. I used to be an insurance defense lawyer. And
out of here.
Sarah Peak and I are sitting here. Was that Chris Legault who's back there? I wanted to know why the insurance companies weren't standing up objecting to this, because on more than one occasion, I sure did ask for a jury instruction for failure to honk before passing, and by gosh, it's still the law, so judges are given it. So, but I think this is an antiquated practice, antiquated statute.
Yeah, so that's how you got your early Dr. No training
Got it, man.
as an insurance
Absolutely.
guy.
I was trained by Mother Farm.
The truth is revealed. All right. Anyone here to speak in opposition to the bill? Anyone here to speak in favor of the bill?
Move the report.
We have a motion to report. We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to report. Please indicate your preference on the electronic voting board. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Be
Members
cool,
of the
be
committee,
cool.
thank you.
The Code Commission is in your future. You dig these things out. All right. Next, we have a twofer. We've got Delegate Corey, and we have, is she here? Yes. Oh, there you are, hiding behind the podium. Lisa, what we have here is two bills, Delegate Corey's and Delegate Plum's, that both deal with the issue of what to do with pedestrians in the roadway in terms of what your obligations are when there's a car stopped in front of you for a pedestrian and what have you. And we have a solution in that Delegate Plum found some language that if he could put it in Delegate Corey's bill, that his bill would, his purpose would be served. And Lisa, if you could report what we're going to do here.
Mr. Chairman, looking at Delegate Corey's bill, which is House Bill 1705, we would add a new subsection B and then re-letter accordingly the existing sections that says when a vehicle is stopped pursuant to subsection A, the driver of any vehicle approaching the marked crosswalk from behind the stopped vehicle shall not overtake a stopped vehicle.
Okay. Do we have a motion on that amendment? We have a motion and a second on the amendment. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the bills are now one, and it is yours, Delegate Corey. Tell us about what the bill now does.
Thank you. Thank you very much for helping make this bill a lot better. This bill came to me a few years ago from the Bicycle Association of America, and we've been trying off and on to work to protect bicyclists and pedestrians. Well, bicyclists, they walk with their bikes in the crosswalk. From the increasing amount of accidents and fatalities that are occurring. You may know that in Virginia, actually, pedestrians are being injured at a faster rate. It's increasing at a faster rate than car crash fatalities are. So we do have to do something, and this is an attempt to clarify how to protect a pedestrian when the pedestrian is in the crosswalk, to have cars not overtake each other and not cross the crosswalk until the pedestrian has passed.
Yes, and we've had two notable. I know Delegate Cox, before he was Speaker, fell victim to that kind of situation, as did the Loudoun County representative here day before yesterday, who was struck and hurt badly. Well, she broke her leg, so pretty badly. Fortunately, Senator Stanley was there to witness it and provide aid to make sure that she was okay until the paramedics got there. But it was that same kind of situation. You have the walk signal, so you walk right out thinking you're good, and somebody comes up from behind you on the right and is turning left and doesn't wait for you to clear and hits you. And that is one of the circumstances to which your bill addresses. Am I correct?
Yes, you are, and I'm sorry to hear that example.
Okay, it is. Okay, we have a question. Senator Cosgrove.
Well, I just want to actually make a statement. First off, I was going to mention, the young lady that was hit the other day. Just trying to cross Main Street here yesterday. I was right in the middle of a crosswalk, and this person just right through and missed by about that much. Now, I don't know whether it was accidental or on purpose, but whatever.
I'm sure it was an accident.
Depends on whether they were from Chesapeake or not.
Yeah, exactly. And if looks could kill, well, she would have needed medical help. But anyway, I think this is a good bill. And is there an amendment that needs to be done, sir?
They want no Democrats.
I think we've taken care of the amendment, and so we'll do that. And then we have to PBI or carry over Delegate Plum's bill. I think probably PBI would be the better way to go on that, but we'll do that next. But anybody here to speak in opposition to this bill? Anybody here to speak in support? All right.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Noel Dominguez with Fairfax County. Our Board of Supervisors actually supported both the Delegate Plum bill and the Delegate Corey bill. As we have more concentrated growth in our locality, we're having more pedestrians, and we believe this will help with pedestrian safety. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Next.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Sarah Taylor, City of Alexandria. We know that protecting vulnerable road users in our community needs a lot of tools in our toolbox to address it, and that's why we supported the Delegate Corey bill, the Delegate Plum bill, a number of other bills out there this session. But this is a complicated solution that needs lots of tools for us to address it, and these are two options that we would very much like to have in our toolbox. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a quick question.
Senator Favola.
And I guess the representative from Alexandria could probably answer it. I know if counties or cities don't adopt ordinances, they can use the state ordinance. But if they do adopt a local ordinance, it would conform to this, I would expect. But the value of having them adopt that local ordinance is, I think, enforcement becomes easier, and it is an educational process because they have to advertise the ordinance, they take public comment. So that might be one thing we can encourage.
I think that's exactly what I mean. I know for our community, we would very much like to have this be part of an educational opportunity for our community, not just a punitive thing. This isn't about, getting people in trouble for bad, driving behavior. This is about an educational opportunity in our community. So thank you.
A different version of this bill goes back to Delegate Brian Moran, currently Secretary of Public Safety, back in '06 or whatever that was. All right, thank you. Next.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Champ Burnley, Virginia Bicycling Federation. We support both bills. I hate to report this, but I just want to let you all know that the number of fatalities in Virginia for pedestrians is up 57% since 2015. We got a big problem here, and I think this will help stem that.
Yeah, hopefully if this bill passes, we can get the word out, because it will take years for this to sink in to people that when you're turning and there's a pedestrian there, it's not a situation of timing. It's one where you really do need to stop. So hopefully that will help. And until we have the cars that are self-driven and automated and electric, and they'll do our thinking for us, which is probably better. So anyway, thank you. Anyone else care to speak regarding the bill? We have Senator Cosgrove. Senator Cosgrove moves to report. We have a second.
Second.
Indicate your preference on the electronic voting board. Oh, hold on. There we go.
Ayes 14, no 0.
Ayes 14, no 0. It's been many years since this came up, and you finally took it across the finish line. Thank you, Delegate Corey.
Thank you very much.
All right, next we have my good friend from Loudoun County, Delegate Reed. Before we do that, David, could you suspend for 1 second? We have to, I need a motion to, we have put Delegate Plum's bill into Delegate Corey's, but it's not like a roll-in or anything like that, so we do need to dispatch HB 1644. Do I have a motion to PBI? We have a motion to second to PBI. Please indicate your preference on the electronic voting board.
Ayes 14, no zero.
Ayes 14, no zero. HB 1644 is PBI'd, but not without some good work by Delegate Plum to make Delegate Corey's bill better. Delegate Reed, what do you got for us?
Mr. Chairman, I have two bills, House Bill 717, which we'll do first, and then House Bill 991. House Bill 717 is an electric vehicle tax rebate working group, and it sets up the working group to be led by DMME and also will include the Department of Taxation, DEQ, DMV, as well as industry and nonprofit stakeholders, and directs them to deliver a plan to us to implement a tax rebate or voucher program for electric vehicles, and that is to be delivered to the General Assembly by August the 30th, 2020. And then this program will be in place in the event that we actually decide to fund it. A little bit of background on this. This probably started, at least for me, in 2018 with the idea of doing a tax credit. And then this year we started looking at it, and we looked at a tax credit and then a tax rebate program. And as we got all of the different stakeholders together, we found out that it was really going to be a whole lot more complicated to actually implement than to actually just say that we wanted to do it. And so the approach that all of the stakeholders have agreed to is that they will take the time between now and next session to be able to put together a program and evaluate the different options.
So we have 4 departments sitting down in the off-season and beginning to unravel this situation, and there won't be any need for. Are you going to participate in that?
I will participate if they feel that I need to be there, but it really is intended. I mean, I can provide guidance and an overview of what the expectations or what the overall objectives are, but the intent is, and we've had discussions with them about what needs to be done, and they all seem to be on board with that.
All right. Are there any questions of Delegate Reed from the committee? Anyone in opposition to the bill? Anyone in support would like to talk? Here we go. Mr. McCauley, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alexander McCauley for EVgo, electric vehicle charging company. We support the bill.
All right. Next.
Gary Greenwood, Sierra Club. We support the bill, and we thank Delegate Reed for carrying it.
Michelle Satterlin, Volkswagen Group of America. We support the bill as well.
All right. Lots of support there.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Can you want to close out?
Well, I would like, because there doesn't appear to be someone here from DMME, but I don't want to kind of forego something that I had said that I would ask this committee to do. They believe that the August 30th, 2020 deadline is too soon, and they had requested that it be changed to November 1st, 2020. So if the committee would.
Could we have a motion to amend the bill thusly?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The bill is amended thusly. It is now before us as amended. We have a motion to report. We have a second.
Second.
Let us know your preference on the electronic voting board.
Ayes 12, noes 2.
Thank you, Mr.
Ayes
Chairman.
12,
Thank
noes
you,
2. The
members.
bill reports.
The next bill is House Bill 991, and this is an administration bill. And I'm just going to give you kind of a high-level overview. This particular bill would clarify that weight limits for emergency vehicles that are covered in the Section 46.2-1127.1, which the General Assembly adopted in 2018 to comply with the Federal FAST Act. This would now apply to firefighting equipment when the equipment is operated on the interstate highway system. This was an oversight that didn't get included in the bill in 2017. It's important that we actually update the code so that we actually comply with this, because otherwise it puts in jeopardy about 7% of our federal transportation funding, so to the tune of about $79 million. And this has been worked out with the other stakeholders. There was a concern about volunteer firefighters having to pay for additional DMV permitting. We've determined through working with DMV that there's probably only about 3 vehicles in the state, and the second enactment clause in here actually makes it so that DMV will give them that permit without any additional charge.
So they're going to grandfather in 3 vehicles that may be in violation of the new.
They will permit them at no charge, and then that way we will then be in compliance and we will not have our federal funding in jeopardy.
And so therefore, if a local fire department decide to get an out of compliance vehicle into service, they would be in violation then.
I suppose that's a possibility.
So,
but I hope that they would not be getting in
so
knowing what the law is.
That's on them. Any questions from the committee?
Quick question, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Favola.
Thank you. So you said volunteer firefighters or the volunteer equipment owned by volunteer firefighting companies would be permitted in. But the cities and towns, they would not have to be permitted. It would be automatic.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Favola, those were all covered originally. So those were covered, and what we had to do, though, because there was a discussion as we were talking with the delegates from the more rural areas where they had volunteer firefighter organizations that were not covered by that specific section of the code, that's where in here we added the number 2, the enacting clause that then says that this will also apply to volunteer firefighting units so that they will not have to pay for their DMV permit to be able to operate.
But
Senator Favola.
Thank you, Delegate Reed. I did read that. I just, I guess my question is, will both the volunteer equipment, the equipment owned by volunteers as well as the publicly owned equipment, they're going to be treated equally, I guess, is the point I'm trying to make.
That's correct,
okay.
Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Okay. Delegate Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question, Delegate. And I just want to make sure that going forward, because I don't truly understand the bill, and I may have to get VDOT to come up.
We have lots of folks from VDOT here to help.
All right, as I understand it, in Arlington especially, got really tall buildings, all right? Their trucks weigh a lot because they're heavy vehicles. They have to be in order to be able to provide protection. So they're already okay under the code now, right? All right, so next year, when Senator Favola finds another couple of $1 million for them to buy a new fire truck that's even bigger and better, is that still going to be covered?
Mr. Chair, Joanne Maxwell from VDOT, working equipment here. We are actually down to 1 vehicle that may exceed the FAST Act weight limits, interstate weight limits now. We've actually contacted, we were able to finally talk to two entities, so we're down to 1. But you are correct. While they would exceed the weight limits, we are allowed to provide them with permits that would allow them to operate on the interstate because they're a non-divisible load. Typically, there's a fee associated with those permits. Local government agencies already get those permit fees waived. The second enactment clause that was described by Delegate Reed would now also waive it for the volunteer, the private entities that are running fire companies.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
All right. Any other questions from the committee? Anyone in the audience in favor of the bill would like to speak? VDOT? Joanne?
Mr. Chair, I would be remiss if I didn't say yes. This is a VDOT bill, and we do support the bill.
You've confessed. Okay, there you go. Delegate Reed, I thought you were just perusing the code and found this out and just decided to take action.
No, and I'm not sure that I would like to be volunteered to be on the code commission, sir.
All right, we're turning people in. Anyone here to speak in opposition? Okay, do we have a motion on the bill? We have a motion to report as amended.
And I will second the.
And we have a second. Indicate your preference on the electronic voting board.
I didn't think it was amended. It's you just.
Well, we changed the one.
No, that was the
date.
earlier.
That was.
That was the earlier bill.
Earlier
Oh,
bill,
okay.
yeah.
I amend my motion to just report the bill.
Just report the bill. We have a second, and
Second.
indicate your preference on the. Bill, go ahead.
Ayes
Mr.
14,
Chairman,
no
thank you,
0.
committee members.
All right, 14-0. Here we go. All right, next we have Delegate Wyatt. Welcome, Delegate Wyatt. We had a chance to meet yesterday for the first time. Welcome to the General Assembly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senators, and I have House Bill 1577.
Turn your attention to 1577. Are there any amendments or substitutes that need to be
No, sir, Mr.
considered?
Chairman.
All right, 1577. Okay. Tell us about it.
1577 authorizes the Department of Criminal Justice Services at its discretion to issue tow truck drivers licensing who had been convicted of crimes that are greater than 15 years. This was brought to me by an individual who lives in the district, and he committed a crime of breaking and entering when he was in his 20s. He's 50 years old now and haven't been able to drive a tow truck at this. So it still exempts those individuals that are on a sex offender list, and at the discretion of Criminal Justice Services, we hope they wouldn't give a violent criminal a tow truck a license to drive as well.
Delegate Wyatt, is there a process in place for them to review that person individually?
That they would have to go before them at their discretion to do that. And many years ago, when the towing board was around, I was one of the 3 citizen appointees, and those folks that wanted to appeal if their license was denied would come before the 3 citizen appointees with state police present, and those were granted in some circumstances. Of course, violent criminals that have been convicted weren't permitted. So it leaves it at the discretion of Criminal Justice Services to allow those folks to drive that are greater than 15-year convictions.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Is there any question from the committee? Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you. Is Colonel Maxey still available? All right. Well,
There he is.
All right, Colonel, we're looking at, Mr. Chairman, may I? Mr. Chairman, may I ask?
Yeah, please.
Okay, thanks. On House Bill 1577, tow truck drivers, criminal history, have y'all looked at this?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Cosgrove, yes, sir, we have. We have no issue with this, no concerns.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
All right, Senator Obenchain.
A couple of things. Well, first of all, I mean, this does allow somebody convicted of violent crime to fall within this. I mean, as I read it, I mean, it says has been convicted as long as the violent crime was more than 15 years ago. Am I misreading this?
They could at their discretion, so we would hope they would not. But it would be as we requested it, that it would be at the total discretion of Criminal Justice Services, other than exclude those on the sex offender list.
And is that 17.1-805? Is that the sex offender registry?
I can't answer that one, Senator. Mr. Chairman, Senator Obenchain.
Senator Obenchain. Yep. Another follow-up?
Well, I'd like to know, I just want to make sure that sex offender registry is in fact there.
In line 45 of the bill,
Lisa, do you know?
it said no registration shall be issued to any person who is required to register on the sex offender list.
So with that exclusion, if more than 15 years have passed since your conviction on something that would be considered a violent felony, you can be considered for a permit to drive a tow truck by Department of Criminal Justice Services, and they have a process in place to examine that individual, and I would assume they have some standards that they would apply to make that decision. Would that decision be made by the agency itself, or would names have to be submitted to the board of DCJS to make that decision? Do you know?
They were directed by the Department of Criminal Justice Services to contact me. I assume they can make that right in-house.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Obenchain.
I'm just trying to find where and I believe in grace. I think that I think this is laudable. I think there are a lot of violent crimes that really have no impact on somebody's qualification or appropriateness to operate a tow truck, but, I live in a rural part of Virginia, and, my wife or daughter's car breaks down in between Woodstock and Harrisonburg on back road, and tow truck driver comes to pick them up. I'm not so sure that I want somebody who's on the sex offender registry, violent or otherwise, even if it's been more than 15 years, running that tow truck, because that's going to be the person.
Yeah, Senator Obenchain, from my own history here, I've sort of taken on to be the patron saint of the towing industry, and the legislature sponsoring a number of bills because everybody needs an advocate, as you can understand. And what the experience has been is the tow truck drivers are more likely to be subject to violence by angry people getting towed, especially in the trespass situation, than they are to perpetrate violence. And the interesting thing is that pretty much the industry standard, at least in Planning District 8, is that if your car, if you've hooked somebody up and you're not moving, and somebody comes out and you're still in the act of hooking them up, and you haven't left yet, pretty much every company now is saying, drop the vehicle and leave the scene, and say, that there's no need to tow you. So I think the industry is at least with some of the flashpoint confrontations that take place, they've taken some action to train their employees to make sure that doesn't happen. But I understand your concern in terms of
and just to clarify,
it's either in here or it's not.
It's in.
So they are not eligible after 15 years if you're on the sex offender registry.
No, sir. Mr. Chairman, the current prohibition applies to anyone who's on the sex offender registry, period. That's on lines 45, 46. That's current language, and that is not changed. What this bill changes, if you look on line 54 through 56, is saying for violent crimes, which would, if the violent crime involves register on a sex offender, you would still be prohibited. But for violent crimes and for crimes involving the driving of a tow truck, if it's been more than 15 years, the department has discretion.
All right. Thank you,
All right.
Lisa.
Other questions from the committee? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to the bill or in support of the bill? Seeing none, would you like to wrap up? Anything else you want to
Hope it'll be
tell
on
us?
the will of the committee, Mr. Chairman, to
All right, the
pass
bill
this
is before us. Do we have a motion on the bill?
I will move to report.
Second.
Motion to report in a second. Indicate your preference on the electronic voting board.
Ayes 12, noes 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ayes 12, noes 2. Bill is out of here. All right, next on our list, Delegate Tran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
What's your bill number?
Hold on, let me just pull it up. I think it's 1217.
1217. Turn your attention to Delegate Tran's House Bill 1217.
And we do have a line amendment.
We have a line, you say a line amendment?
Amendment, yeah.
Okay, staff, could you report the line amendment?
Mr. Chairman, on line 13, after striking the word signage, insert under the jurisdiction of the department.
So would you consider that just a technical amendment? Or does that substantially change anything?
It narrows, this is a Section 1 study we're asking VDOT to complete, and it narrows the scope of their study to roads and bridges that are under VDOT's jurisdiction.
Roads and bridges, so nothing that would be under the, of a city or,
A county.
or any kind of a private road?
Yes, sir.
That just the ones that VDOT is responsible for. Okay.
So
we have that amendment before us. Do I have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to report the amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The bill as amended is before us. Tell us a little, Senator Cosgrove.
Yeah, Delegate Tran.
Yes, sir.
This just affects Northern Virginia, is that correct?
it's specific to Planning District 8.
Well, we got flooding
Yes.
where I live.
I know. I had it much more expansive when I started, sir, but in working, in getting some of the feedback back from VDOT, I just narrowed it. But if I can give you the context, you could, I'm at the mercy of this committee.
Delegate Tran, with VDOT, was it a question of capacity
Yes, sir.
to do?
Yes.
But
she's here, so she could answer that as well.
Joanne?
Mr. Chair, it's also a question of duplication. Currently, VDOT has entered into an agreement with VIMS, Virginia Institute for Marine Science, to do a study of tidal flooding, recurrent flooding, coastal flooding, and that is going to be focused largely in Hampton Roads as well as some other coastal areas. So originally, this bill had planning district, I think it was 23 in there, but we felt like there would be so much duplication. VDOT has already paid $1.5 million to VIMS
All right, Mr.
to be
Chairman,
doing
just
that.
one-
Senator Cosgrove.
Just one more line of reassurance. So you're basically going to do this in Hampton Roads anyway.
Absolutely,
All
Mr.
right,
Chair.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, you're a little more vulnerable down there than we are. All right. Anyone here to speak in opposition to the bill? Anyone here to speak in favor? All right. Noel?
Mr. Chairman, Noel Dominguez with Fairfax County. The Board of Supervisors does support this. We feel it will provide some good information on some of our roads that have recurrent flooding. Thank you.
Okay. Fairfax County checks in. Senator Favola.
I just one question, and I think this might be included in here, but is there going to be some linkage between land use and this recurrent flooding issue? Because if you're looking at Plan in District 8, it's a pretty fairly developed region. So I would think there'd have to be a nexus between the land use and public transportation infrastructure. I guess I'll ask staff that question.
While Joanne comes up, and maybe if I could explain just the context and
Yeah.
why that part is not addressed, perhaps. So there are parts of my district where we have a bridge, and this is actually part of the district I share with Senator Serval, that experiences recurrent flooding and is deteriorating. However, it is still considered in good condition. And there are no funds at the state level that you can use to address bridges or roads that are otherwise in good condition, but when there's flooding, it either shuts down or is impassable. And so I brought a picture, for example, like that. And so there are other areas in Planning District 8, and we have some other pictures too, but that are affected similarly. So it's really looking, and so it's just asking VDOT to assess and make recommendations so that we could take that back to the state, and whether it's a broader state strategy or how that happens. But there's just currently no avenue for either the state or localities to work together on this issue right now.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cosgrove.
I just ask you, is there you and Senator Favola, is there a financial impact on this? I don't see a FIS on it.
It looks like it's going to be absorbed by the
I don't
folks
see
that
one.
are doing this.
All right,
And,
Joanne's shaking her head yes, then. Okay, that's good.
It's going to, and we, in the engrossed bill, we have a delayed enactment, the report is due in 2021, so similar to when Delegate Reed talked about his Section 1 study, it gives VDOT adequate time to complete the work.
Could I
Senator
direct my
Favola.
question to the VDOT representative? I'm not going to fool around with amending this, but on line 14, where it talks about identify the issues related to recurrent flooding and the scope of such issues, as you know, I represent portions of McLean, which of course, and Great Falls, which those two neighborhoods do have significant flooding. And in part, it's because way back when, homes were built on a flood zone. They didn't know it at the time. So there is a linkage between land use planning and flooding, and I would expect land use to be part of this conversation. Are you going to be coordinating with the appropriate agencies or stakeholders to bring those issues to the table?
Mr. Chair, yeah, and I have been advised by one of our engineers in location and design that our hydrologic modeling actually takes into consideration land use. And so when we're looking at some of those issues, it does take into consideration land use.
Because those are
And
some,
also,
I mean, that's probably the biggest local issue your Board of Supervisors can act on.
Very good. Yeah, a lot of localities do put money into their own roads.
Mr.
Others
Chairman?
do not. We got Senator Survell has
Thank you.
joined us.
I'm
Welcome.
back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just so we're clear what we're talking about here, there are many bridges in at least the part of the county that I live in that was built out before the rest of the county that the bridges probably date to probably the 1940s or something, and they are built very low to creek level. They're very small. Some of them have weight limits, and they flood all the time. And it's not just because, it's raining a lot more or heavier. It's just they flood all the time because they weren't built as tall as we build bridges today. And so, for example, the situation Delegate Tran I know is concerned about in our district, it's the only road to get to probably about 400 or 500 houses. And every time it rains, they have no ambulance service, no fire service. People can't escape. And so these are the kinds of bridges we're talking about. We're talking about replacing really old bridges that are safety hazards to the community. So it's not so much a land use problem, although I know land use can cause more rain with the more surface area and pervious surface and all that kind of stuff. This is really about an infrastructure problem, and I think the point of the study is to try and identify how many of these are out there and whether we should be looking at funding them so people don't die of a heart attack because of a thunderstorm. I think that's the idea.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Other
I
questions?
think
Senator
we're all-
Cosgrove.
I think we're all supportive of
we're-
this. I would move that we report the bill.
Second, anyone here else want to speak? All right, we have a motion and a second to report the
with
bill.
amendment.
Record your preference on the electronic voting board.
Ayes 12, noes 2.
Great, thank you so much.
Ayes 12, noes 2. Delegate Tran, your bill passes. Next on the list, Delegate Davis.
So House Bill 1126.
Turn your attention to 1126. Any amendments or substitutes?
No, sir.
Tell us about 1126.
Sure. So House Bill 1126 is more of a clarification bill in today's day and age. So this deals with abandoned motor vehicles. I think ultimately this was always thought as to be what we think of cars, motor vehicles, etc. Some towing companies have inferred it to be motorized skateboards, motorized scooters, motorized bicycles. And what's happening is it's leading to some predatory towing, and also you can buy motorized skateboards and scooters at Walmart now, and that's getting caught up where people actually have them for their sons, and they're mixing up in there. So this just says motorized vehicles are 75 pounds at least, and that's up to 11,000 pounds is the first, I think, drop or breakout. So
Yeah, Delegate Davis, these things end up everywhere. I have a friend of mine who's on the board of the Georgetown, Washington, D.C. Civic Association. Once a year, they drain the canal to pull the beer cans out, and voila, this year, littered with scooters.
Now, if Peter didn't throw them into the river, they get picked up. But the concern is you got, so it's not just, I think all the localities now, and there's been no issue with localities on this. There's RFPs in the area, there's agreements worked out and that sort of thing. But this is literally now you've got individuals that buy these for their families. And they also get caught up in these things now. I don't remember everyone ever towing my bicycle when I was a kid. Now, obviously, it wasn't motorized at the time, but kind of weighs the same amount. So that's.
Yeah. Senator Cosgrove.
Having suffered through these scooters everywhere, I move to report this bill.
Okay. One question that I had, and maybe Joanne, you can help out with some of these new devices. I mean, these new vehicles. Are some of them referred to as devices and others as vehicles, or does everything that the delegate is talking about come under the definition of a vehicle?
Mr. Chair, thinking about your bill, that bill is very clear that the personal delivery devices they are not vehicles. And so those items would not fall under this bill.
But everything else that he's talking about would be defined as a vehicle.
I believe that's the case. I'd have to
Okay.
look
We
at
don't,
it.
yeah, we don't want
but I think-
to, we want to make sure we're going to either pick up or not pick up devices, but all right. And we have a motion. Anybody here to speak in opposition or in favor of the bill? Okay, the bill is before us. We have a motion to report. We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Let us know your preference on the electronic voting board.
Ayes 14, no zero.
Ayes 14, no zero. You are out of here.
Thank you, Mr.
All right,
Chairman.
very good.
Okay.
Delegate Simon. Is Delegate Simon here?
Delegate Krizik's here, though.
Okay, we'll get him in a few.
Krizik's been waiting.
Wait, he's on the list here, but right now I've got Delegate Keem next up on the.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Excuse me, Delegate Keem. After this, there'll be Hodges, Delaney, Guzman, and Krizak, and then there are 7 more. But we're on a roll, so we'll get you out of here.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Spruill.
You going by a certain list because you got folks been sitting out there for a long time. King's my brother, but you got people sitting out there a long time.
I was on the queue, though.
Well, he's in the queue up here on the board here. So that's the sign up. That's the sign up sheet, and that's the fairest way to do this, Delegate Keem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. And I apologize for if anybody was waiting too long, but Delegate Simon and I are switching places from General Laws to here, so he'll be here soon. Mr. Chair, members, I have House Bill 465. This hopefully is a simple bill. You all remember from last year, we passed unanimously in both House and Senate a bill that would allow for these new e-scooters, electronic scooters, to be provided as a commercial product in the Commonwealth at various different localities. Now, obviously, some localities don't need it, don't want it. Others in Northern Virginia and other places do want it. And so what we've asked the localities is to develop some ordinances so that they can kind of regulate them in a certain way. We want to have statewide consistent minimum standards and such. And we also put on a deadline of January 1 of this past year. And so by the end of last year, a number of different localities had adopted ordinances to regulate this. But as you know, Mr. Chairman and members, this e-scooter is a fairly new product in the marketplace across the country, and a lot of other cities and states are experimenting to see what the best ordinances are. So my county in particular and others have adopted some ordinances, but they felt a little bit rushed in trying to kind of come up with something to meet the deadline. So what I'm trying to do, Mr. Chair, and again, I'm not doing this on behalf of any locality, I just kind of sitting through some of these meetings, I came up with this on my own, that if there are some counties or localities that felt like they needed a little bit more time to think about this and work on it, that we should give them an extension. And also for those towns and counties like mine that did not adopt something, like the town of Vienna, this gives them a chance to say, you know, we'd like to adopt something as well. And so what I've done is there are 4 pieces of this bill. One is to extend the deadline from January, which we just passed, to October. Second is to allow for those ordinances, localities that haven't adopted it to go and do so. And then also for the companies that are providing services now, they need to understand that going forward, if the ordinances change, obviously they need to live by that. And then the most important part of this, Mr. Chairman, is that I thought that we should put an emergency enactment clause so that if it goes into effect in July, but we give them until October 1, it doesn't make as much sense as if
in the bill that I had on devices, which is the personal delivery devices, we were very clear. We just added today a House amendment to that bill that made sure that VDOT on roads that these things were operating on had the same authority as localities to continue to put requirements that are consistent with safety. And so, I think you're consistent with the way people are thinking with this rapidly growing disruptive technology that has been thrust upon us. And we'll always be a little bit behind the curve, but this gives a good good planning and response tool for local governments. Any questions from the committee? Anyone here in support? Anyone here in opposition? We have a move to report. Do we have a second?
Second.
Indicate your preference on the electronic voting board. Delegate Keem, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll scoot out of here and apologize.
All right. Next, we have Delegate Hodges, followed by Delaney, Guzman, Krizak.
Good afternoon.
Keith, welcome.
Yes, sir. How's everybody?
Good. What do you got for us?
All right. House Bill 1259 deals with parking on streets. Basically, Mr. Chairman,
good place to park.
Yes, sir. Members of the committee, Town of West Point has requested this bill. Basically, the problem is you have small lot sizes. A lot may be 70, 80 feet, but then you have a camper that's 40 feet. You may have a utility trailer that's 12 feet, a couple of cars, a boat, 20 feet, where we are. I mean, by the time it ends up, you have 120 feet of vehicles and your lot's 60 feet. You're on Main Street, so they're looking to be able to regulate the ability for parking for just watercraft boat trailers, motorhomes, and camping trailers. So, I mean, it's typical. They have side streets and so forth, and they just wanted to be added to the list. It's they've talked about it in town council and so forth. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Would they be providing the signage to let people know that?
I'm sure. I'm sure, but there's this just adds it to that list that's already in code.
All right. Questions from the committee for Delegate Hodges? Senator Favola.
I had a note here that Frederick was going to be added. Is that?
That's fine if that's a friendly amendment, if they'd like to be included. I mean, that's fine if you don't mind, Mr.
Or at least there's a note.
Yeah, come on up, introduce yourself. And
Mr. Chairman, Tom Dick for Frederick County, and we had.
From what county?
Frederick County. And we respectfully would request to be added on it. We've got a similar situation in parts of the county with very large trucks parked along the residential areas that we're trying to, they'd like to be able to try to address that. The same as these other.
Are you talking about commercial vehicles?
Yes, sir. Well, the ones that are not.
As described in
Yes, sir.
in this code section. So you're not looking to do anything different?
No, sir.
Because watercraft, probably not as big a deal for.
This is just the same as everybody else in there.
Well,
We're
Mr.
not-
Chairman, I would move an amendment, and the patron says it's friendly to add Frederick County after West Point here.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Servo.
Speaking of the amendment, or a question for Delegate Hodges, do you know how Delegate Collins or Senator Vogel feel about that?
I do know that.
It's you? Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's okay
Oh,
with
okay.
it. Delegate LaRocque's okay with it.
All right.
Okay, we are.
That's my amendment. You
So
need a
we have,
second.
Senator Favola has moved the amendment to add Frederick County. Do we have a second? We have a second to that motion, so all in favor say aye. Aye. Frederick County, actually, the county that George Washington, I believe, represented in the House of Burgesses. Back
Chairman,
then,
I
you didn't
moved
have
to
to live in your county.
I moved to report.
All right, do I have a motion to report? Do we have a second?
I second that motion.
All right, indicate your preference on the electronic voting board. Hold one more second. There we go.
We're never going to add with all this chit chat.
Ayes 12, noes 1.
Ayes 12, noes 1. Bill passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There
Glad
we
to
go.
help folks up in Frederick, and Frederick's my dad's name too. So
Is that right?
It's a good
Well, there
day.
you go. There's a connection.
That's right. Thank you, Mr.
We're always looking for a nexus on this committee. Next, we have Delegate Delaney. We share one precinct together. And
We do.
Yeah. All right.
Yes.
Delegate
right.
Delaney, what have you got for us today?
All right, Mr. Chairman and committee, I've got two bills for you today. If you don't mind, maybe starting with 411.
411. Turn your attention to 411. Any amendments or substitutes?
Not for this committee. No, in fact, we
Okay.
didn't. I think we did a substitute in the House that is the version that came over to you. So the bill before you simply requires the Department of Motor Vehicles to offer information on veteran services that are available in the Commonwealth to any person who identifies themselves as a veteran on any document that they submit to the DMV. Virginia, of course, is the proud home of many who have served and protected our nation, and this bill not only recognizes their service, but it also aims to inform them that the Commonwealth is proud to call them residents, and that we have many services and programs available to our veterans, and to inform them of those programs and services. We know that oftentimes when someone is discharged from the military, they're often processed in the state of their final stationing. And at this point, they are often provided with an abundance of information that may be specific to that region, but they may then relocate back to their home state or to a different state. And if that is Virginia, we'd like for them to have an opportunity to receive information about the variety of services that we have to offer when they go into the DMV, fill out a form, and check a box that says that they're a veteran. That will automatically
make them informed on some of the great services that we offer our veterans here in the Commonwealth.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you. Very briefly, veteran brings in his DD-214 into DMV. He can actually get a veteran's ID card at DMV at the same time he's getting his driver's license or other credentials. I think it's a pretty good idea. It looks like DMV can absorb the cost. It's not that much.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, DMV has indicated that they are happy to absorb the costs.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions of Delegate Delaney from the committee?
Mr.
Do we have-
Chairman, I will move to report when you're ready.
Oh, okay. Let's just check out, make sure no opposition or anyone in support, either one. All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill. Indicate your preference on the electronic voting board.
Ayes 14, no 0.
No.
All right, 14 ayes, 0 nays. Bill reports. You got another one?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman.
All
Thank
right,
you.
you're going to press your luck?
Okay, yeah, I know. Here we are. All right, we've got HB 983. This is a bill that subject you have heard before, but I think we're going to be hopefully offering some new perspectives to you today that I'd like to share, and I know VDOT is here to answer any questions as well. So this bill authorizes Safety Services Patrol and VDOT Incident Management Coordinator vehicles that are operated by persons who meet certain training requirements, that those vehicles may be equipped with flashing red or red and white secondary lights, which are only to be used when responding to accidents and other highway or traffic emergencies that impact the travel lanes. So the bill before you, allows these vehicles to display these red and white lights when they are responding to an incident. It does outline the specific training requirements, which ensures that the operators of these vehicles know how and when to use the red and white lights. And the usage of similar lights in Maryland has allowed vehicles to have a much quicker response time. In fact, their data has shown that their response time to accidents has been cut in half. With the use of the red and white lights. This not only allows them to respond to those incidents faster, it reduces the clearing time, it increases the safety for others on the road and for those at that incident, and then it reduces the secondary incidents. The longer that an incident is on the road uncleared, the likelihood of secondary collisions goes up. So it not only helps that initial incident, but it helps relieve the chance of secondary incidents, and that combined reduces overall congestion that is associated with any traffic incident.
All right. Now, when they use these, red lights, this is certainly a change in policy. It's been done in other states. The whole science of this is called TIM, Traffic Incident Management, and this is a tool that jurisdictions can use to do this. One of the things that's come up in some of the discussions, and I don't know how you feel about it, is that there were some folks who would feel a little more comfortable with the bill is if when this type of vehicle using these red lights arrived at the scene that they would be required to turn them off.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and I would certainly consider that a friendly amendment if the committee felt more comfortable allowing the use of the lights to get to the incident. And then when they arrived, that's language that I think I would consider a very friendly amendment.
Yeah, I think it might cut down on the confusion. Can I have a motion on that amendment? And Joanne, would you want to comment on that as because I know this was a bill that was supported by VDOT?
Mr. Chair, this is actually VDOT's bill, and we would be amenable to that change if it would help to, at the scene, to help reduce the issue of confusion.
Yeah.
The issue we're primarily trying to get at here is to get to the scenes faster.
Mm-hmm. Now, that's what I thought. So, Lisa, do you have a place to put that in the bill?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. On line 33, after on Route 2, strike or at. And so that way the language
All right.
would
Do I
just
have a
read-
motion on the amendment?
So, second.
All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the bill is before us as amended. Joanne, anything else you wanted to say from VDOT's viewpoint? It is your bill, and it's just about getting there quicker.
Mr. Chair, that is correct. And we have been working in conjunction with folks, particularly up in Northern Virginia, Planning District 8, and with jurisdictions that have, at least Maryland, that has had good, optimal, positive experience with this. And so the administration or the VDOT's been allowed to carry this bill. The governor strongly supports the bill.
Okay, very good. Anyone any other questions from the committee?
Mr. Chairman, just
Senator Cosgrove.
two questions. Number one, and I'm just looking at the language here. You don't have any sirens, do you?
No, Mr. Chairman, and VDOT can confirm that, but just lights, right?
Mr. Chair, actually, there would be sirens. There's another code section that ties the sirens. I think last time we heard the debate, there was concern that we didn't have sirens. And actually, the language, I think I'd heard some of the opponents to the legislation indicate there was a problem that might be confusing. But the bill, the way the code is structured, yes, these vehicles would have sirens.
Wow.
All
Mr.
right.
Chairman, I have one more question, please.
Senator Cosgrove.
Was there a Senate companion to this bill?
I do not.
Was there?
Was there? And what's the status? It did not report out of this committee.
So, Mr. Chairman, that was a reality I knew coming over here, that bill did not report out. I know since then, I think we've had a bit of time for VDOT to look at the bill, and I know, meet with some of the members just to make sure that we were clear on, I think, the product of this bill and the outcome of this bill is, that this is, I think there were some concerns that were obviously addressed in the first hearing of this. But what I wanted to make sure we had the opportunity to really drive home is that, the purpose of this and the outcome of this is that we're going to have incidents on our congested roadways addressed faster. We're going to have those incidents cleared faster. That's going to reduce secondary accidents on our roadways, so it's going to increase safety in that regard, and that it will then, as the byproduct, reduce the overall road congestion. I've heard statistics about, the more time an incident is on the side of the road, not only does it increase those secondary accidents, but then it also adds minutes of congestion, per minute that an accident is uncleared. So it adds to the congestion on our roadways as well. So I think, these are trained drivers who are trained to operate under these conditions, and I think they're offering a lot of benefits for our roadways.
Okay, any other questions from the committee before we hear from
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cosgrove?
And Delegate, with all due respect, I don't like this bill. I never voted for it before, and I probably won't vote for it this time. But I would like, and I'm going to be gentle on Colonel Maxey here. It's a specific question about sirens. Okay. Is there any accepted practice or code that differentiates one siren from another? Because what I'm seeing here is red and white flashing lights with a siren. Somebody thinks it's an ambulance or a fire truck instead of a vehicle response issue. I mean, are there any differences in sirens?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Cosgrove, first off, thank you for the promotion to Colonel. I appreciate
Well,
that.
if I was governor, you'd be general, so whatever.
I do appreciate that, first off. No, sir. As far as the sirens, it would depend largely upon just the make and the manufacturer of the siren, and we do have the ability to change it between different tones, sometimes just to catch the attention. So it would not differentiate a rescue vehicle from a VDOT vehicle from a law enforcement vehicle.
Okay, second question, Mr.
Senator Cosgrove.
Look, I'm trying to find some way to make this a little more palatable, okay? Is there any way that we could put something into this bill that would require those vehicle sirens to be like the ones you hear in Europe that are different here, like Despicable Me,
And I could speak, I know Ed may, Mr. Chairman, Senator Cosgrove, he may have more indication as to what fire and EMS actually utilize. I know for law enforcement, we do have that ability with ours. I couldn't speak for other agencies, though.
All right.
Hold on.
I can do it.
Thank you, Cap Maxey. Do you have a phone a friend on that could testify? Here we go. Are you in favor of the bill?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members, I am Sterling Reeves, and I'm representing both the City of Chesapeake and Loudoun County, both of whom are among the several localities who asked for your support on this bill and that it be reported. They include Prince William County, Frederick County, Smith County, Pulaski County, the City of Salem, the City of Virginia Beach, the Town of Marion, and the Town of Wytheville. Those are localities that, to my knowledge, have adopted resolutions in support of this approach. And for the very reasons that Delegate Delaney stated so articulately, getting these vehicles to the scene more quickly not only enhances the safety of the scene, but it results in a quicker return to normal traffic flows. And so we would say that having these lights advises traffic to get out of the way. It doesn't matter whether it's an ambulance or a police cruiser or a fire engine or a VDOT vehicle. The point of the lights is to tell people they need to get out of the way so that this response can be completed.
All right, very good. Any other questions, Senator Cosgrove?
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman, and with all due respect, sir, I live in the city of Chesapeake. I represent the largest, well, Delegate Spruill and I represent the largest parts of the city. Senator Spruill and I represent the largest parts of the city of Chesapeake. Senator DeSteff has Virginia Beach, and I have some of Virginia Beach. It's the first I've heard about it.
And so, Mr. Chairman, I just note, looking at the code section that it says red and white flashing lights, but it references the code section where they do have sirens. And so in this, we have forest warden vehicles, as well as some of the other emergency responders that you know as well, Virginia National Guard, Civil Support Team. So there's National Guard, chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and high-yield explosives. So there's a long list here of other vehicles that are not necessarily first responders that are equipped in the same way that we're adding these traffic incident management vehicles to.
All right. We have someone else here in support? In opposition. Okay. Come on up, and then we'll let Joanne, then I'll let you finish up. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Devin Cabot, I'm here on behalf of the Virginia Fire Chiefs Association. And we understand the intent of the patron is laudable, but the chiefs are very concerned about driver confusion. We feel that yellow or amber lights, as they're referred to, are sufficient to indicate caution and incident management, and that red and white lights and sirens are a little bit too far. So they oppose. Please vote no.
And also not in favor of sirens.
Yes, they're linked in this. They're together. Yeah, it's not one.
Your opposition is linked around both of those. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ed, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Ed Rhodes, and tonight I'm representing the Virginia Rescue Squad Association, the EMS Administrators, and the Virginia Ambulance Association. And I actually have a text message from the Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police. Ms. Schroard can't be here, so she asked me to speak for her. In answer to Senator Cosgrove's question about the sirens, in most cases, Federal is the name of the company. You have a box about like this, and you have a switch. It just turns it goes from the high-low sound to a yelping sound to the regular up and down sound. And on fire equipment, you have that, plus you have what's called the Federal Q, is a wind-driven siren that if it comes up behind you, you're deaf. It's very loud, and it takes a long time for it to wind down. And then plus the air horns. Regarding training, let me say this, that the training that is being offered in the bill is nothing more than a 16-hour class with a little, maybe some cone course, slow speed cone course operation, but there is nothing, and I mean nothing in that class, and I taught that class for 25 years, that teaches you how to drive under emergency conditions. It's a whole different world from driving your vehicle like when you leave here to go home and driving under emergency conditions with red lights, siren. You know you can break the law. You know you can speed. You know you can go the wrong way on a one-way street. You've got all that in your toolkit. It's gotten to the point now, when I was still, before I retired from the fire service, we had to come to a complete stop at stoplights before we could even enter an intersection. So I've got one agency out of 400 and some, they called me, told me their training program was 100 hours of normal driving time in the ambulance, and then 50 to 75 hours of driving under emergency conditions with a preceptor.
Are those emergency conditions that are
That's
just practice or actual emergency?
Actual emergency. You can't practice driving emergency conditions.
How long would it take you to get 50 to 70 hours, zooming to a scene?
Well, hopefully you don't zoom. I know when I was working, we couldn't go over about 10 miles over the speed limit.
So you'd have to do, maybe 100 to 200 trips to get your 50 to 70 hours.
It's very possible. But you've got to get that emergency driver training. I mean, it's a classroom. You go over you learn the codes, and you learn different pieces and parts of driving.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Now,
Senator Sproul.
I want to ask him a question. You were saying to me that the VDOT, because some of them are VDOT, some of them are independent. Are you saying the VDOT drivers right there who enroll for an emergency, are you saying they're not trained?
You have to ask Ms. Maxwell that. I don't know the answer.
Ms. Maxwell? I want to know, I'm talking about the VDOT now. I'm saying that I know there's independents who you have to train. I'm saying the VDOT equipment, the VDOT ones who have the trucks right now, are you saying they're not trained to operate on emergency on the road?
Mr. Chair, these, in particular, the SSP, we're limiting these only to the drivers.
Ma'am, that's not my question.
It will. These SSP drivers drive day in, day out in emergency situations on the interstate, responding to incidents, et cetera. Granted, they don't have red lights, but they do have yellow lights, and they do have the ability to maneuver on shoulders in some situations. So they're given extra leeway. One other question I wanted to check, I'm not sure if it's been, or one other issue I wanted to mention was on the sirens. Virginia Code Section 46.2, 1061 states that any vehicle that's listed in 46.2, 1023 is required to have a siren. And as Delegate Delaney noted, that includes the a variety of entities that have red flashing lights or can display those, including DEQ, including the entity that builds ships at Newport News Shipyard. So just to clarify that question.
And you feel, and your research has shown that it's been successful in other states and has measurable empirical results of reduced response time and reduced congestion. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair,
okay.
that is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank
Ed,
you so
anything?
much.
Oh, Senator Sproul?
Thank you so much.
Oh, okay.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Ed, you want to close up?
If I could read this from the chiefs of police.
Please do.
Very quickly. She says, we're concerned that motorists don't pull over for police, fire, and EMS now, so we don't want to further complicate that by adding non-emergency vehicles to the mix. It may actually contribute to secondary crashes. Additionally, police and fire are equipped with traffic cones and flares and can contain the scene until VDOT gets there. In an acute emergency, law enforcement can provide VDOT with lights and siren escort to the scene. So that's from the police chief.
That's where they are. Okay. Ed, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else in the audience care to speak in support or opposition to the bill? Maxey.
Mr. Chairman, Ron Maxey, Virginia State Police. State Police, if data supports any measure that would clear the lanes quicker, we would be supportive of those measures.
Okay, so we have State Police support. Delegate Delaney, you want to wrap it up real quick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, I hold those who oppose this bill in very high regard, the positions that they speak on behalf of. So, I don't take supporting this bill as a patron lightly. I feel that, the evidence that is shown in the localities, the states that have implemented this, the evidence just isn't there to support that adding these red and white flashing lights to this type of vehicle causes the concerns that I think have been presented. What that data does show is, as I mentioned, a response time that is cut in half in Maryland, for example, reduction of secondary accidents. So if the collision that might have happened had an incident not been cleared swiftly, could be avoided, and then the congestion relief that I think simply benefits the flow of our roadways. And then also to make the point, as Ms. Maxwell made, there are already in this code section a number of non-emergency response, non-first responder vehicles, forest wardens, Department of Emergency Management, as she mentioned, shipyard and DEQ, that are already equipped with this same provision. I think that we have a strong case to make that. Clearing our roadways, clearing these incidents, getting people that are trained, and the training provision is outlined here for those individuals who will be responding. They're going to be getting through congested traffic to an incident. I don't feel that they're going to be driving in a way that is identical to some other first responders. So with that.
Okay, very good. Anything else you want to close up with, Joanne, from VDOT?
No, Mr. Chair, we appreciate the time you've given us.
All right. So this is policy choice, where we want to go. Do I have a motion on the bill?
Move the report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to report. Record your preference on the board.
Ayes 7, no 7.
Ayes 7, no 7. The bill fails, and I don't think Senator Newman would likely to have helped you there.
So, Mr. Chairman, I know this sits before you here, and this would be purely the pleasure of the committee. If we could limit this to interstate highways, do you feel that might change the mind of any members of this committee?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Servo.
Thank you. Speaking to the whatever this is now, I believe you need to find that out from Senator McPike, is my guess, or somebody on the other side, because that's where your problem
we are. We're sort of running out of time. This is our last meeting.
I do have.
But we might be able to do.
I have Senator Pike list, and he has it on his list. He has a no on his list.
Okay. And that is to be respected. Senator Favola.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just thinking, I don't think there's any sense in carrying this over, but when you come back next year, could you perhaps shape a pilot? I was trying to get to that as I was listening to the conversation, because experiential evidence would be able to guide us in terms of whether confusion was actually added or in fact, we did a better job of creating a safer environment and we were able to make a positive impact with this.
Yeah, and I think, we could certainly consider our options for that. I mean, I would, of course, have made the case, we're done now, that Maryland, does demonstrate that evidence. I know we are running out of time, so I don't know if there is any opportunity for this session, but, if any members would feel different about making it to highways or even reducing it to a congested planning district, I'd certainly be open to your consideration.
Well, if it's any consolation, you improved on Senator Boysko's score. So you're moving toward a policy change here in the Commonwealth.
I'd be happy to work with you for next year.
And Delegate, and as you know, Senator McPike is engaged in a lot of emergency work, and so at any rate, you might want to talk with him too. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
This kind of messed up the no-hitter, but I'm considering this a tie. So at any rate, that's very good. Delegate Delaney, thank you so much.
Thank you, members of the committee.
All right, next on the list, we have Delegate Guzman and Senator Spruill. I believe you have a motion to make.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Having voted on prevailing side, this bill failed to pass. I move that we bring the bill back.
Okay, this bill was PBI'd. We have a motion and a second to reconsider the vote. All in favor, please record the reconsideration.
Oh.
All right. Anything? Everybody recorded? Senator Searline?
It's fine. We're going to reconsider
Oh, okay. All right. So anyway, 12 ayes, no nays. The bill is back before us. Do you have an amendment, Delegate Guzman?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Could you report the line amendment that Delegate Guzman is proposing?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, on line 17, after the word minor, strike under the, well, basically, we're unstriking the language that's under the age of. And then on line 17, after the stricken 8, insert 15.
15. So essentially what we're doing here is we're doing individuals who are 15 years or younger or under 15.
Mr. Chairman, it would be under the age of 15.
Under the age of 15, so it would be 14-year-olds and below. Do I have a motion on the amendment?
So move.
Okay, the amendment's before us. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Record your noes. It's all right. We're okay. You've amended the bill to come down from
18.
Below 18 to below 15. And do you want to just quickly, we've heard testimony before.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and it's just the Virginia Pediatric Association is here to support the bill. That day, we all were tired. It was like we wanted to go to the game. It was late and they weren't here. So they are here to support the bill. So that day, we didn't have anybody in favor of the bill.
So we had grumpy committee night?
No,
What it was.
I'm talking about
Teasing.
myself.
I'm teasing.
I was tired and I wanted to go home.
Okay.
And I think a couple of things that we talk about the car seat. I didn't know that Delegate Pillion carried this bill in the past. Pardon me, I didn't have that knowledge. I was not serving in that time. And, and one thing that we talk about the car seat, the car seat is a deciding factor. I would argue that it's by weight and height as a mother of 4 children. That's how you use a car seat. I think another point was brought that we will put children in an uncomfortable situation by telling their age. And what I would say is I travel with my children nationally, and the police officer tell me how old they are, they confirm, and we're good to go. It's never a problem. And finally, Mr. Chairman, lying to a police officer is a crime, and I don't think anybody wants to do that.
All right. We have someone here in support.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Lauren Schmidt on behalf of the Virginia chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics, and we do support this bill. Secondhand smoke is 27 times more concentrated in the confines of a small car than opposed to someone's home. Children's lungs are still developing, and so we do support this measure. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Anyone else here to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone here to speak in opposition to the bill? Any questions from the committee? We heard testimony certainly before, and so the matter is before us as amended, and we have a motion to report in a second. Indicate your preference on the board.
Ayes 8, no 6.
Ayes 8, no 6.
Thank you, Mr.
Bill
Chairman, members
passes.
of the committee.
We're off to the floor.
This is all for the children. Let's save the children of Virginia.
All right.
you.
Thank you so much, Delegate Guzman. Next, we have Delegate Krizak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Followed by Delegate Simon and then Delegate Hurst.
Mr. Chairman, I have 2 bills, and I thought I would start with 1427, if that's okay with you. School bus camp.
Okay, could we start with 845?
Yes, we certainly
All right.
can. I also want to just let the record, earlier you mentioned First President George Washington being in the House of Burgesses from Frederick, but don't forget he also represented Mount Vernon, Fairfax County for 10 years.
Do we have evidence of that? I know the Frederick story.
Yes,
And he
we
bought
have
the
evidence.
seat with
Let's
giving
check
out
with the senator.
liquor. So it is,
All right.
anyway.
Bumbo.
Delegate Krizak,
It's called Bumbo then.
Okay, Delegate Krizak, HB 845, definition of law enforcement officer.
Right. I do want to propose an amendment just to strike the last 3 lines of this, which is it's the part that says, in their capacity as law enforcement officers, special agents employed by the WMATA of the Inspector General shall have the same authority and powers as sheriffs throughout the Commonwealth to enforce the laws of the Commonwealth. That's not necessary, and I know my good friend from the sheriffs prefer that.
Pull that up here. 845. You're talking what lines?
They're the very last 3 lines.
216.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I move that amendment, that those lines be stricken.
Okay.
All those in favor?
All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the bill is before us as amended. Tell us about the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So what this does is it adds special agents employed by WMATA, Washington Metro Area Transit Authority, of the Office of the Inspector General to the definition of law enforcement officer. The problem right now is that they don't have that police power. And under the terms of the compact, WMATA is a state government agency, an instrumentality of each signatory, Virginia, Maryland, and D.C. However, the compact's silent on the matter of law enforcement. And as you all know, when you're the Inspector General, you need that power. Oftentimes, not just to carry firearms, to make arrests without warrants, and execute search and arrest warrant type things, seize evidence, but you also need it for other reasons as well. For example, you can't access law enforcement databases without it. You can't serve grand jury subpoenas, and these guys are not just the Inspector General is not just accountants that are looking at books that are cooked or different things like that. Oftentimes, they are involved in a lot of dangerous operations where firearms could be necessary too. And the other side, and this will get them when they get to this place. They're going to work on getting the reciprocity with Maryland and D.C. too.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Question for the patron.
Senator Sherrill.
Thank you. So, I've been reading a lot in the paper about a lot of issues with Metro through the years in terms of, over the last couple of years, in terms of maintenance reports being faked, procurement issues, things like that. I mean, are those the kinds of things that the Inspector General's office looks into to see if there's sort of malfeasance, fraud, embezzlement, sort of those kinds of things?
Yeah, and I do have the Inspector General, their general counsel is here and can speak to it. But you've probably, if you read the Washington Post, I guarantee in every single week there's an article that's generated through because of what the Inspector General has done. For example, in our district at Huntington Metro, there was the situation with that bathroom that's just been there forever and ever. They were able to, they investigated that and they found out that it was, there was some hanky-panky going on. But anyway, so there's the metals. I don't know if you saw that, where they found that there was thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands, I think tens of thousands of dollars of these honorary medals that were being kept, and they but they do lots of stuff. There's a lot of it cyber security. They could tell you a lot of it, but it's really, it hampers their ability to go out there and prosecute these crimes.
They do have a police department, do they not, within WMATA that can carry out some of their legwork?
Right, but keep in mind that they're the Inspector General of the police department, so there's times when they have to investigate that very police department.
Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you. Having grown up in Northern Virginia, I'm fairly familiar with WMATA. Now that's a compact from Virginia, Maryland, and D.C. Has WMATA or the WMATA board or the authority asked for this?
No.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Zerville, down here, question for the patron. Thank you. I would ask a question for the patron. Isn't it also accurate that sometimes the Inspector General has to investigate the board, and there's been some issues with the board over the years, and so their relationship is not always, for example, a rosy one?
Right. That could be the case. They're the Inspector General. They're independent. They're under WMATA, but they're independent of WMATA. So they have right now. They can investigate the board. They can investigate the WMATA police, anybody, people who are employees that are stealing equipment, the whole gamut.
Okay. Senator DeStef, you have a question.
I had one question, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, Delegate Krizak, have the individuals who are requesting this with the Officer Inspector General, have they gone through LEO training, and are they sworn law enforcement officers? So have they gone to the academy like every other sworn law enforcement officer has to?
And Mr. Chairman, Senator Cosgrove, Senator DeStef, sorry, they have, and they're here to talk to you. I mean, these guys are former FBI. They've and we had that was one of the questions that came up in the House side. They've got that training, and they would go through. They would get the same kind of. They would get license or whatever that process is in Virginia as well.
Senator
DeStef. Delegate Krizak, just one follow-up question. I'm going to be silent on this. So does the Officer of Inspector General, what academy do they go through?
You got it.
Hi, introduce yourself, tell us who you are and
Good evening.
what you do.
My name is Renee Fettles. I'm the Deputy Inspector General for the Office of Inspector General for the Office of Investigation. So to answer your question, currently we're not law enforcement officers, so we have not been through any state academy. The majority of our agents are retired federal agents that have been through the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center and have worked over 20 years as law enforcement officers. I myself am a retired federal agent that have been through the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center and have been a law enforcement officer for 23 years.
You said the majority. How many IG inspectors are there, and how many would be law enforcement already, or, would have had that background?
So our office in totality, the whole OIG is approximately 43 individuals. I would say approximately between 16 and 17 of us work for the Office of Investigation. I'd say right now around 10 of us have been through a law enforcement academy.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, and correct me if I'm wrong, to further answer that question, because that's a good question, they only need about a handful, 6 or so. So they would only have 6 or 7 of their officers that would have this power. If this power is granted to them, they would only need 6 or 7.
But what you're asking for here is for everybody who's an inspector, in the IG's office to have police powers, and some of them would not have been trained, and so it would undoubtedly be a selective process. And we're talking about people who are former somethings, not people who are current somethings. And so we have the circumstance here is how would they be so designated and sworn at that point in time? Would you only swear the ones who have experience in that? And, has that experience been recent enough that one could not have them to go through a refresher? How does that work in your mind?
So I can tell you that all of our current special agents, obviously, as I said, they're not sworn law enforcement. Not all of them want to carry weapons, and certainly, if this law passed, we would start with those that have had the training and the experience, and certainly, the majority of those have been law enforcement officers within a relatively short period of time before they retired. And I say within 5 years.
Yeah. How would we be lawfully able to grant you this this authority that the compact does not?
So I would like to turn that over to our attorney, if that's okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good afternoon. My name is Michael Mobbs. I'm the counsel to the Inspector General for WMATA. As has been stated already, we are independent, so I do not speak for anybody except for the Office of Inspector General. This bill that's before you does not purport to amend the compact. Furthermore, the compact does not prohibit Virginia from legislating on matters that are within the competence of Virginia, as long as those matters do not conflict with any provision of the compact. So what we have here is a bill that is actually intended to assist WMATA through its OIG in more effectively carrying out our functions with regard to investigations by giving us this authority in Virginia. It doesn't happen very often that a state tries to help out a compact agency in that fashion, but when it does happen, the courts have said in a long line of cases that it's permissible to do so as long as it does not purport to bind any of the other states and doesn't conflict with the compact.
I'm a little uncomfortable with the notion that, it would seem to me that this would need, that if this came forth as a change in the compact, I think we would probably be, at least I would be more willing to go along with that. We're kind of, instead of working from the top down, we're kind of going from the bottom up, because has Maryland done this yet, or DC?
It's our intention to take it up with both of those jurisdictions.
Okay.
There have been preliminary discussions with Maryland, and the signals were positive, but we need to carry it further.
Ultimately, does it need congressional approval?
No, sir, not unless it's an amendment to the compact.
To the compact.
Mr. Chairman.
If it's an amendment to the compact, yes, sir.
Hold on. Okay. Senator Serval.
Mr. Chairman, I think I heard Mr. Chairman say that this is a change to the compact. Can the witness confirm that this bill does not change the compact and that the compact is completely silent as to law enforcement powers for the Inspector General, or for that matter, it's silent as to the Inspector General, I think, right?
It does not purport to amend the compact. It would not amend the compact. The compact is silent on with respect to the law enforcement authority of the Inspector General. It does have a short paragraph about the Inspector General, but it's quite vague. And what it does say, though, among other things, it says the Inspector General is to be an independent office that, among other things, conducts and supervises investigations of all WMATA activities. That includes the board of directors. That includes management. That includes the police department.
Very good.
Mr.
And in
Chairman.
order to do that work, we need the tools to do it.
Okay, Senator Favola.
I would think, with all due respect, that we are changing the scope, or at least the activities within the Office of the Inspector General, if we were to adopt this. And it would seem to me that the Office of Inspector General is such an integral part of the operations of the Metro that has if not legally, has a courtesy we would speak to our other compact partners. This makes me very uncomfortable, simply because it seems to be outside the construct of the way we have agreed to do business when it comes to funding Metro, when it comes to the oversight of Metro, when it comes to our partnership with the federal government. I just wanted to put that out on the table. I don't know if you can make me feel more comfortable, but
I certainly like to try, Senator, yes. I've got there. This has happened. There are precedents for this type of thing.
Yeah, I think this is something that would need vetting. I would be more comfortable if perhaps our Attorney General's office took a look at this, that our team of attorneys here at DLS is pretty complicated kinds of things. It is, I appreciate, your being here and doing that, but I think this is something we need to take a look at. Senator Favola, you had a motion?
I do, and I have the greatest respect for Delegate Krizak. You always, represent your bills extraordinarily well, and this is no reflection on you, but I just, given the context that we've talked about in the comments I've heard from my colleagues, I am going to move that we PBI this.
Well, why don't we just carry it over so we can look at it?
Oh, that's a gentler way. Okay, I will move that we carry this over, and we can bring it back next year, maybe after you can answer some of the questions that have come up.
And perhaps do some of the legal inquiries that would, make us a little more comfortable. Senator Cosgrove?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Delegate, seriously, I think that the compact needs to have some type of voice in this instead of just surprise. There you got it. I'm sure they know that you have this up here. But one thing I do want to say, if there's investigations need to be done, we have a state police department that's very good at that. So
Yeah.
That's one thing, anyway.
And let me, if you don't mind me responding really quickly, Senator Marsden, and thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senator Favola, for your kind words and for handling this with some kid gloves. And I think, yeah, we will maybe perhaps come back. But yes, there obviously what happens now is they do use our like Fairfax County Police or Alexandria or State Police or the FBI. So there is a workaround, and they've been doing that for many years. But we'll talk to the Attorney General. There has been discussions, of course, with WMATA. But
Mr.
we
Chairman,
understand.
You have convinced me that there's a problem here that needs to be solved.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to pin the question. You're going to be here all night.
Okay, there you go, Senator Fruhl. We have a motion and a second. Let's state your preference for carrying it over for the year.
Ayes 13, noes 1.
Ayes 13, noes 1. The bill is carried over for the year. We'll see you next year. Let's have a chance to look into this. And I think the Attorney General's office might be might give you some guidance on this. So thank you.
I do have one more bill.
You do? All right.
Mr. Chairman, and before the delegate starts on his next bill.
What's that?
Before he starts, I'd just like to ask, how many bills do we have left? I just have another member of the committee ask.
I think 3. This one, and then we have 2 license plate bills that from Delegates Simon and Hurst. Oh, who else do we have? I didn't see any other.
There's 7. All right. That's
They're
enough
not
for
all
me
here.
to
There's
tell
one
the other
from
committee
Delegate
member. Thank
Herrick
you.
that I know I was going to deal with. But yeah, we got a little more miles to go before we sleep. Hold on 1 second. Suspend. Well, I'll take care of a few of those. But I'm just talking about the list that we have. Okay, 5. 5 after this one, okay? Delegate Krizak, what do you got?
All right, I'll make this really quickly and with respect to Senator Spruill, and hopefully you guys can give me a good outcome on this one. This relates to school buses and the big problem we have with folks passing them and the danger that poses to our children. And I see it all the time back home. And what this does is this will add an administrative fee to recover the cost of collecting the civil penalty to be paid by the operator of the vehicle, and which will really help to get folks motivated to not do this. And it really, yep.
Well, there you go.
Thank you.
There you have it. We have a motion. Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against?
1 out of 2. No, we're going to move this.
Okay.
Okay, there you go. We have a first and a second.
Yeah, before we vote, I still don't understand.
Clear the board.
So the bill is to add an administrative fee. And why do we need the administrative fee? How has this not been functioning?
So right now, the way it works is very similar to the hot lanes language in the code. So it's a civil, it's just a fine. It's not a criminal fine. So you can't, there's no points and there's no charge that you can levy on anybody. So it's really, if they pay, they pay. If they don't, they don't. I hope nobody's watching so that they know they don't really have to pay. But the problem is you've got about 25% of the violators are paying within the 30 days, but then after a certain period of time, it really stops at about 50, 60%. And what this does is if you pay, they get a letter that says, hey, if you haven't paid the fine for passing the school bus, but we'll give you we're fining you another $25. However, if you pay it within the next 30 days, you don't have to pay that. And it really, it's really gotten folks in other jurisdictions, it's really moved the needle and gotten more people to pay. And remember, the money goes, it goes to the local school division. Richmond schools left earlier, but they were here and they waited for as long as they could, but they wanted me to tell you that they were supportive.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second to report. State your preference on the electronic voting board.
Would you vote me? Oh, sorry. No, yes or no? Ayes 9, no 6.
Ayes 9, no 6. Bill reports. Next, we got Delegate Simon. I think you were next on the list.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
This is a little bit of an unconventional license plate bill. This is actually revisiting a license plate bill from 2 years ago, where we established the license plate that had the legend "Stop Gun Violence."
What's the number?
60.
Oh, this is House Bill 160.
160. Any amendments or substitutes before us?
All this does is actually repeal an enactment clause. As you may remember, this came through as a $10 license plate. Carol Luton, woman in my district, circulated the sufficient number of petitions to get a stop gun violence license plate at $10 a pop. Over on the House floor, they amended the bill to require it to become a $25 plate and established a fund within the DBDHS to fund mental health services out of the license plate. That was over the objections of the person who circulated the license plate, but she said, look, if that's the only way I'm going to get my license plate, we can do that. We've already collected all these $10 applications. We have a delayed enactment on that for 2 years, but I really don't want to do it. But that was the only way she could get her plate, so she did it. And so now, here we are 2 years later, and July 1st, these plates will go up from $10 to $25. The advocates who really want this license plate don't want it to be a $25 plate. They don't believe in sending us off for mental health because they think gun violence is much broader than a mental health problem. And so they've asked that we remove the enactment clause and keep this a $10 plate.
So it's a non-revenue sharing plate at this point in time, and it's back to your original intent from 2 years ago?
To have
2 years ago?
To have it remain a non-revenue sharing
And
plate.
it remains a non-revenue plate. That's fairly straightforward, fairly simple. Any questions for the patron? Anyone here in support or in opposition to the bill? Do we have a motion?
I move to report.
Chairman.
Second.
Motion to Senator DeStaff.
Mr. Chairman, I just had one quick question, and
Certainly.
I think I already know the answer. You've got your 450 signatures, correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And this is in circulation. There's about, I think, 700 or 800.
This was a bit of a political
I
dust
just
up.
wanted, and that was the issue before, is a policy issue.
Okay.
And I just wanted to.
Bill is before us, and
Open the roll.
open the roll. Let's indicate your preference on the electronic voting board. There you go, Delegate Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Your journey is over.
Appreciate it.
Delegate Hurst.
Rehearsing my presentation for you.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have before you House Bill 211, and we do have a substitute to this bill to try and address some issues with some stakeholders.
All right. We have House Bill 211, Delegate Hurst's bill dealing with the special license plate for air folks.
Mr. Chairman, I move the amendment in the nature of a substitute.
We've got a motion and a second to accept the substitute. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Let's have a chance just to read this.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, the only difference is that we have now made it a $10 annual plate fee instead of the one-time fee that is normally done for our military metal special license plates.
Why? And Delegate Senator Cosgrove, you had some sort of inside Tidewater information.
Yes, and
on
I was
this.
just speaking with Delegate Hurst about this. The air medal is, when it first came out, right around World War II, you really had to do something extraordinarily special and valorous and almost be in an aerial dogfight to get an air medal. But it's really changed a lot since then. Basically in the Navy, if you're flying in a combat zone and have at least, I think it's 10 sorties or 50 hours, you're entitled to an air medal. So basically it's not as rare as I think we all think it is. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is no disrespect to the medal, because some of my pilots were some of the best people I ever knew. But we have always had the requirement, at least as far as I can remember, of requiring 450 prepaid plates. This bill does not do that. And we did that for Senator DeStaff's Virginia Beach Strong plate. That's the, and I'm not going to follow my sword on this, but I mean, that's kind of been our policy. So, but Delegate Hurst has some other information too.
So, Mr.
right.
Chairman,
Delegate Hurst,
to
you
the
want to
committee.
respond?
Yeah. So, The former chairman of House Transportation, David Yancey, asked DMV and stakeholders to convene a study that looks at armed services metal special license plate studies that came out in December of 2019. One of its recommendations was to actually include the air metal in addition to also the Army Soldiers Medal and the Coast Guard Medal as specialty license plates. And in their draft language that they had in the report for it, they drew it to Title 46.2, 745.1, which currently now is for the Navy and Marine Corps medal, but they wanted to add the Airman's Medal to it for a one-time fee of $10, and that already in the code for that previous medal for Navy and Marine Corps, that the provisions of subdivisions B1 and 2 of 46.2, 725, which cuts to the 450 plate requirement, shall not apply to license plates issued under this section. It's the same thing for the Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal. It's the same thing for other specialty military license plates. And so
you're saying they're included in into a larger cohort that has already qualified in terms of the number of plates, and they're
our special
exempt?
military license plates are different than what we've done for other important plates. And believe me, Senator DeSteff had that Virginia Beach Strong plate before, my subcommittee in transportation. We wanted to make sure that that was an available option for people to honor those that were killed in Virginia Beach. And yes, there is going to be a 450 requirement for that one. But the DMV and I would say, this body has seen these special military license plates as something that do not need the 450 plate requirement and are normally done either for no fee or a $10 one-time fee. But at DMV's request, we are willing to make this a $10 annual fee.
Okay, and so this is the result of the work group, the study group?
The origin for this bill actually came from a constituent who was just wondering, because he had an air medal, and air medals are a little. Senator Cosgrove is right. The way in which you get awarded one is a little different now than it used to be. But we have thousands of people in Virginia that we've been able to estimate, would qualify for an air medal, and he just wanted to have it on his car because he's really proud of.
So, if I could ask staff, would this be legal to pass this bill without the 450? Is it covered, or is it just is it just the?
Exempt.
It's exempt already?
Can I ask a
Okay.
question?
Senator Cosgrove.
Delegate Hurst, let me sure we're talking about the same medal here. Now, there's an Airman's Medal for heroism, and I get that one. Or there's an air medal. They're really different.
Senator, to the chairman, to the senator, I would say that for the United States Air Medal, you can have it for value. You can also have it based on activity.
Right.
And in this particular case, it would be either or.
All right. So, any other questions from the committee?
No, Mr. Chairman, I move to report the bill.
We have a motion to report. Do we have a second? We have a
well,
second?
Yes, motion is to report the subject.
All in favor of reporting the bill, indicate so on your electronic voting board.
All right. Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee.
There you go. There you go, Delegate Hurst. Thank you. All right. We have 3 matters, I believe, left. Let's start with HB 1518, Delegate McQuinn's bill. Came out of the House 100 to nothing. Joanne, could you put this on? Basically, what this does is just allow VDOT to pay upfront as opposed to on an invoice from a jurisdiction that they're doing work for. And I would assume this has some advantage that I'd love to hear.
Mr. Chair, you've caught it in a nutshell. Basically, this bill, right now the law requires VDOT to only reimburse localities when they're administering locally administered projects. This bill would change that, the word reimburse in essence, to compensate, so that it gives us flexibilities to, in some cases, where a locality might need some money up front, we could actually advance the money as opposed to wait for reimbursement. We would still look at reconciliations, make sure that they're spending the money the way they need to be spending the money or required. But it's just to give us a little more flexibility.
So it just incentivizes so that jurisdictions go ahead with projects and there's no fiscal impact to this?
No, Mr. Chair, there will be no fiscal impact.
Okay. Anybody here to speak in opposition or in support of this? Any questions from the committee?
Can I have Mr. Chairman? question.
Senator Servo.
Can I have an example of, like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I have someone from our local assistance program here who can give you an example. But localities are often, for instance, there are projects that are funded using, what's an example?
Revenue sharing.
Revenue sharing funds, for instance, where the state is providing a match to local funds. In some cases, right now, we would not be able to advance the state share of those funds to a locality that's participating in that type of program if they're administering
Mr. Chairman,
it.
maybe move this along. Are we talking about building roads?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
They're transportation
Further
projects.
question, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Servo.
How big of a road? How much money are we talking about? $100 million project, $200 million project, $2 million project? I'm just trying to get a sense of what we're talking about here.
Mr. Chair, it can vary, but in a lot of cases, particularly the revenue sharing, they're not huge projects. They're smaller projects, but they can certainly help jumpstart the project.
Mr. Chairman, further question.
Senator Servo.
So we're talking about like 1 to 10, 1 to 500 million. I'm just trying to get a sense.
Mr. Chairman, Russ Dudley with the Local Assistance Division of VDOT. Currently, with revenue sharing projects, we limit state participation to $10 million. So the maximum participation could be $10 million of state, and since it's a one-to-one match, it's $10 million of local money, so that's a $20 million project. Up to 10, we could advance.
Okay.
All right.
Further question?
Senator Servo.
So we're talking about like an intersection redesign or something, basically. Not like a major widening or something like that.
That would be a common
Okay,
project.
thank you.
And this is a tool that you would need to get a project going that the jurisdiction may need desperately, but doesn't have the cash up front to get it all done without, to pay for it, and you're able to front the money.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We get this request quite often that why can't you just give us the money up front and then check it at the end rather than have us spend it up front and then reimburse us?
Sounds like a sound policy, and we have a motion and a second to report. All in favor indicate on the electronic board. Thank you very much. All right, we have 2 left. The first, if we could deal with Delegate Heretics' bill. The number on that one is 1455. My understanding of this is that when you send out an invoice, this is actually a money saver in that you can now, under technology that exists, you can track first-class mail. You don't need certified or necessarily registered, but you can track first class. This makes it easier on everybody, and I think this bill, what did it come out of the House at? I'm trying to find it here. 99 to 0. Somebody took a walk, I guess. I don't know. But at any rate, Senator Newman, do you have a question?
I mean, under this do you ever get certified mail? Because this gives you multiple options. I mean,
Yeah.
when we put this in place, we did it for a pretty good reason. I just want to make sure that at some point they know that you got it.
At this point in time, they're actually able to track, my understanding is, and I can't testify to this as an expert, but that first-class mail is now trackable.
Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, you can track that it went to the location. You can't, I don't think you can track that the person got it. So,
well,
that's the question.
Very often, with certified mail, people, if they don't go down to the post office to pick it up, if they weren't home when the delivery, you never know. Anyway, Senator DeStaff.
Eric here probably is one of the smartest folks when it comes to mail and what's trackable, what's not, how you track it, the systems and all that in place that's in this room that I would see. So we may ask him to answer that. And then, Mr. Chairman, if I may, my concern is on our military members, when you put it down that it's trackable, literally, they have to sign it. And if they're away at training or TDY or something like that, and they get back, then for them to have to sign for that means that's when they receive.
Yeah, I think this is what this does is indicate delivery. It doesn't say that you were home, that you got it, but it was delivered to your home.
And Mr. Chairman, that's one of my concerns with the way the bill is written today, is I know it saves money, but we have a lot of military members between your district and my district. And what I'm a little concerned with is a lot of the folks will disappear for, 30 days to 45 days. When they sign that and send it back, that's receipt that, hey, I've received my mail, and it helps that, now you can see that was a military member, this is when they received it, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my concern with
Well,
that.
I tell you what we do here. Delegate Heretic had a conflict, and I told him I would put the bill on. Why don't we get this out of here, make sure somebody at least abstains, and we can get some.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
And then we can deal with it. Senator Servo.
Thank you. A question for council, and I know she's new to this subject area, but it's my recollection that we did this on some other similar areas in the last 2 or 3 years. I remember this concept being talked about in terms of these mailed ticket notices or something. Is council aware whether or not this appears anywhere else in the code already where we're doing this?
Mr. Chairman, I believe, and I can't think of the specific examples, but over the past several years, there's been several bills, both in the transportation area and not, that have updated certified mail to include first-class mail.
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to report.
Second. Motion and a second to report. Indicate your preference on the electronic voting board, and Senator Suderline has indicated his willingness to volunteer. Well, we have plenty of volunteers, so we'll deal with this, and I'll get better information before it hits the floor from Delegate Heretic. And so 8.
Ayes 8, no 7.
Ayes 8, no 7. The bill reports to the floor. Final bill, I believe, is Delegate Wiebert's. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That is HB 941, electronic speed indicator signs. This bill is on Route 17. You might remember this one. This was Senator Vogel's bill. It's similar to Senate Bill 557 that was reported from Senate Transportation and passed the Senate 40-0. The committee might wish to conform this bill to Senate Bill 557. We haven't conformed it yet? Okay. We have a motion and a second to conform. All in favor, say aye. Aye. It is conformed. The bill is before us as conformed. We have a motion and a second to report. All in favor indicate on the electronic voting board.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Boom. We are done with Delegate Wiebert's bill. Does that conclude the docket?
You're done. Mr. Chairman, good job. You're first up. Well done.
All right. There we go. That was dealt with. Yeah. Thank you all very much. Appreciate all the help this year and breaking me in.
Huh?
Thank you.
Huh?
Where is it?
All right.
It is going.
Yeah, took care of that.
I texted them all.
Got everything?